I'd like to call to order the June 9th, 2020, the Board of Supervisors work session meeting. And I'd like to just let everybody know, if you're here, you're more than welcome to speak on any item that's on the agenda. We'll take the time for just listening to conversations. I know that there may be opportunity for that, so let's talk about the first item, which is the discussion with Mr. Stanley on the Federal Warren County Chamber of Commerce funding request.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In your packet, you've got the request from the Federal Warren County Chamber of Commerce requesting funding from the town and county to support their operations through the end of 2020. Specifically, they're asking for $5,000 a month from both the town and the county. The Chamber of Commerce is a 501c6 organization and is not eligible for the Payroll Protection Program, or PPP. Unfortunately, the Chambers had to cancel or postpone its largest fundraisers, including the Wine and Craft Festival and annual dinner, due to the COVID-19 restrictions. The Chamber is providing support to our local businesses during this crisis, including launching Front World to Go to assist local businesses who are offering delivery, online ordering, curbside pickup, and personal shopping. We're also assisting local businesses by connecting them to resources for applying for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL loans, and the PPP, and have launched several virtual meetings to connect the business community. The cost of the county to fund their request July through December would be $30,000. As we talked about at our CARES Act meeting with the town last week, I think the proposal is to take $60,000 off the top of the CARES Act funding to fund the request for both the town and county. And Matt, I'm assuming that's still the plan from y'all's perspective. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions, and we've got Mr. Farrell here as well. But I think folks felt it was a good use of the CARES Act funding, and we could address it quickly and take care of their need and our need for expediency as far as the paperwork on that aspect of it. But certainly the Chamber does a lot for the business community here. That they have stepped it up, I think, during the pandemic and been there and been available. And that's all I really have. I see Nikki's out here in the audience. And Nikki, did I miss anything? Anything I should? Okay. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Farrell, have you re-verified to make sure that all of this will come out of the CARES program?
To the best that we researched, both myself and Mr. Hammond feel that the language is there that this could be taken out of the CARES Act.
And I believe that Mr. Chedrick, y'all, the town council is in agreement of this as well.
Yes, sir. We had a work session last night, and
This podium, please.
Daryl gets us all the time, doesn't he?
Yeah.
yes, sir. We had a work session last night, and there was consensus among council to handle it the way that Doug and Mr. Farrell recommended on Friday, which was just to have the county take it out of the CARES Act fund. I believe there was sense to go ahead and do it otherwise. I mean, they're very much committed, like Mr. Stanley said, very much committed to help the chamber during this time.
Any additional questions from the board here?
Mr. Chedrick, should the town use the Chamber of Commerce to dispense the CARES Act on your behalf? Will the Chamber of Commerce receive compensation to do that? I'm just curious. Is there a way to?
We actually talked about that this morning.
Okay, good.
They are going to incur some, I said we talked about that this morning. Last night at the meeting, I was directed to go ahead and approach the Chamber of Commerce to assist the town in administering the CARES Act funds for local recovery to the businesses. As such, I mentioned to them that they were going to be incurring some expenses, additional expenses, postage and accounting, perhaps some additional accounting expenses, bookkeeping. And so I said, you ought to consider if there's going to be an additional expense above and beyond the $30,000 that we would be our portion of the CARES Act. So they're going to take it to their board and consider what that right number is. I'll take it back to council and ensure they're okay with that number. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a fee associated with that, as there should be.
Absolutely.
Nikki, you realize that, this is a two-way street, that if the town is gonna do part of that, with the county's gotta do part of that as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or concern?
I would just like an idea of where all your funding comes from normally. I know COVID knocked out your fundraisers, and I don't remember when I signed up last year, whether or not my dues are ready yet, that we pay dues as members, but what other avenues of funding do you have?
So 58% of our funding comes from events. So wine and craft, river and brews, annual dinner, those things. And then about 27% comes from membership. And then the other percentage is things like our leadership program, our sponsorship program, those things. So, but the vast majority of it is events. So.
Now, y'all had to cancel an event here recently that's a big event?
Oh yeah, well, we actually had to cancel 3 events so far, which is our golf event, our annual dinner and awards, and the wine and craft. Now the wine and craft festival, of course, is our largest fundraiser of the year, and our income for that event is about $60,000, but then of course you have to back out about $20,000, a little under $20,000 for expenses, but that's still a very large portion of our budget.
Will that be coming back?
I hope so. We're waiting, I think like everybody else, on the governor to let us know what we can and can't do. Obviously, I don't think people can wine taste, with their masks on, so I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we would hope so. That event's not going anywhere. Of course, we're going to have it as soon as we're able to, but that's just we're just not sure. So, we have a rescheduled date on the books right now in August, but that's still really up in the air. And then of course we've got River and Brews, which is typically scheduled for the fall, and we're waiting again to see if we're going to be able to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
Do we have a motion on that?
This is one session, so we can't take motions. It has to be a regular meeting, so we put this on the 16th.
Written differently? Okay.
Question?
Yes, sir.
So this 60,000 they're asking for,
30,000.
it's 30 from the county and 30 from the
Correct.
county, from the town, so it's, yeah, 60. Does that make them whole? Does that fill the hole in their budget? And it sounds like they're trying to reschedule events. So if they're able to reschedule some of those events and recoup some of the money that this contribution is expected to cover, do they end up with a surplus? Shouldn't there be some kind of agreement that if they end up making more than what they had planned, that some of that money gets refunded?
Thank you. Nikki, would you like to address that?
Again, like I said, we're certainly not sure what's going to happen with our events. Will $60,000, help us? Absolutely, it will help, and it will help us ensure that we can continue to do the programs and projects, the educational events, those things that we do for our local business community. Right now, again, I don't know that we're going to be able to have the Wine and Craft Festival, and I don't know that we're going to be able to have the River and Brews Festival. And the other thing that's out there is if we are able to have those events, how many folks are going to be, interested in coming out? So there's a lot of things up in the air with that, and I don't have the answer to that right now.
I have the answer, Mr. Kushner. The CARES Act isn't dependent upon future profitability. The CARES Act is meant to be given to the businesses without any stipulations for repayment or any requirement. That's the whole point of the CARES Act, and it's meant to be a stopgap between COVID and whenever the next, they can open up to become fully profitable. So there is no stipulation with the CARES Act.
Okay, it's not tax money.
Well, we're all paying for it,
Local
yes,
tax
sir.
money.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
Federal,
not
yeah.
local tax money, no.
Correct.
Just to add, you can't have a callback. That's when I confirm that way.
Any additional deliberation from the board? Thank you, everybody. Next thing on our agenda is.
So wait, I'm sorry, was there consensus for the board to put this on the June 16th regular
Yes.
meeting? Okay.
Next item for discussion is the Swaggart Production Systems LCC proposal for the video recording services in the boardroom. Mr. Stanley?
Yes, sir. Back on May 5th, we had a board work session to discuss the Swaggart proposal for hardware and indexing storage software in the boardroom. There were some concerns raised by the board members, and they directed Emily to reach out to see if they could be addressed. One, would it be possible to solicit for additional bids or issue an RFP in order to receive more than one quote for this type of product and service? Does Swaggart have the option to include replacement audio equipment as well? And there are ongoing concerns about feedback we've experienced here in the boardroom. And then during the May 4th joint work session, Ms. Oatsek raised questions regarding the security of the live streaming software and especially the security of that software. Mr. Todd Jones, and I do want to take the moment to thank Todd, Town IT Director, for all his effort in running this down and trying to put this proposal together. I know it's been a lot of work, Todd, and thank you for carrying the ball for us, and Dwayne as well for the county. And I'll try to answer some of these questions, and I'll ask Todd to come up, but I think the easy answer is you could do an RFP and solicit proposals for video equipment, just to buy the equipment to replace the 20-year-old cameras and the equipment in the rack in there in the room. The difficulty is what Swaggart has to offer as far as the indexing and the kind of the web content management. That's the unusual piece. I had gone out and looked just online, Googling and searching. There are different companies with kind of different ideas. And probably, yes, you could try to put something together to say, redo our audio and video system and tell us what you might be able to do as far as the proposal, but I don't think you're going to get, there's nobody with an apples to apples comparison, am I right, Todd, on that? So, I think at the end of the day, for the county, the equipment cost was $39,717.50. We're due to be getting a check for $31,000 from Comcast, so the net there is about $87,1750. The question about the audio, and Todd and I talked about a little bit again before the meeting tonight. Yes, we can try to address the audio. Some of it's been addressed. There's still a little tinniness in the sound quality. Best thing to do is get an audio pro to come in here and look at the system. I don't know necessarily if it's the mics or the wiring or the equipment in the back in the room. We could do that outside of the product, this product. This is not Swaggart's Bailiwick's audio system, so I think your best bet is to go to somebody who does audio and have them come in and take a look at that. And about security, there's some information there from Natasha with Swaggart. She says, our cameras aren't connected to any IP network whatsoever. We use SDI for video, dedicated power cables, and RS-232 serial cables daisy chain between each camera, controlled directly from a physical location to the camera control server. An unauthorized agent wouldn't be able to connect to the cameras as there's no wireless access that might otherwise expose an attack vector. If on the off chance the physical serial connection is tampered with, we'll know about it as we test regularly and will alert immediately contacts within the jurisdiction. Today, we've only had to respond to false alarms of this nature where an authorized technician had been working in the server room or needed to unmount a camera to perform construction work in the chamber. So it sounds like that doesn't seem to be a significant issue. And I think the other issue, and I'm trying looking for that, the other thing is just really our ongoing costs that we don't have now, which the $20,265, which covers the county and the school board service to run the agendas. So I think the real leap of faith is, are we comfortable, do we want to shift money over for reserve for contingencies, put it into a dedicated line item to pay for our AV system on an annual basis to cover that cost. I think from a staff perspective, Emily would agree, it's certainly the ability to have the videos up automatically. I mean, we constantly are running, we ran into issues the last few weeks with the computer here that uploads videos. We're constantly having to address little smaller issues. I think that would be seamless. And I think, I think the ability to index for citizens to be able to go in and jump into it, item H directly without having to try to speed through. There's some value there. There's some value for staff. Is it 20,000 in value? I'd say ask me in a year. It's hard to put your fingers exactly on it, but from everything it looks, everybody that I talk to, and I've talked to especially the folks in Winchester that have it, it's been well worth the expense. So with that, Mr. Jones, myself, Ms. Schrock, you're happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
So with respect to the minutes, so the transcript of this particular software is available in the form of minutes, is that correct or no?
So I think the town's looking at going with minute transcription. I'm not a huge fan because we don't do verbatim, we do action-based minutes. When you look at Emily, she lists the item, lists the discussion, and the action. Not a 5-page word-by-word transcription of everything that happened during that event. So our minutes have been a little different. Now you could do that, but I know if I try to talk to Siri, their words get switched around, incorrect words used. We saw the example of the minutes that we saw where the word. So there's a lot of time. Go ahead, Emily.
And one of the hesitations that I specifically had with especially verbatim transcriptions that are done by a third party is that even if they complete them, somebody will still have to read through the entire document and make sure all of the names are correctly spelled, all of the roads are correctly spelled, everything is grammatically correct. So it's pretty much the same amount of time, but you're just reviewing somebody else's work instead of creating your own.
Emily has her minutes done pretty much the next day. She's got the outline before the meeting, and you got a little more time, but she for our staff meetings and stuff, she generally has the outline already put together. So I don't know if that extra cost for us is worth it at this time.
And what is the extra cost?
Todd, do you remember the transcription fee cost? It's not quoted in ours because ours does not include it. Do you remember what your cost was for transcription?
Yeah, we've decided not to do transcription.
Okay.
So,
I just wanted to inject.
Yeah, so if I could inject, there is a transcription that comes with it for closed captioning. So it's a computerized transcription. There are going to be mistakes in it. So you can actually read that if you needed to. That's just a text document. The type of transcription that the town had considered ordering was a more enhanced transcription that was reviewed by a human being, names were inserted and things like that. That's what we chose not to do. But both with the county system and the town system, there is a basic computerized transcription service.
Okay. So, and what my concern was is that the accuracy of the minutes and were they usable in a legal setting and some other factors that we have to consider as supervisors with having minutes taken.
Yeah, so the advice we received from our council is that the actual video recording itself and the way that they're doing that, associating it with the agenda items, they're perfectly fine using that in a legal setting.
Okay.
So we're likely to be reverting, and if you look at the progress of history, and minutes used to be taken in a tablet with a pen, then minutes were taken with some computerized system, then audio, and then now we're in this world of pure video, and which is the most accurate form of minutes. So we're actually going to go, at least the last discussion we had, we're going to revert back to a very rudimentary, action-oriented set of minutes, and then allow the audio-visual piece of the meeting to be kept in perpetuity. So we're actually going to keep it on the Swagit system, but we're also once a year we're going to be migrating it to our own computer system to keep it for future purposes.
Okay, and that's important, I think, for us to consider. Mr. Cullors and I were discussing this, we were concerned about the accuracy of the minutes.
For the video, I understand it's gonna be live streamed as we're having a meeting.
Lead in.
And, I wasn't sure if I lean in or lean back when it starts coming. What is the move from live stream to channel 16? Because that's where I'm getting a lot of complaints from people calling me. I don't get complaints on much of anything except why are the meetings on channel 16. So what's the transition and how fast and smooth is that going to be?
So if the board chooses, they can run their meetings live as it happens. So you can actually tune into a TV station and watch this meeting right here live, if that's what you all choose to do. Beyond that, then those meetings will still have to be uploaded to a server like they are currently. And once they're uploaded, then they can be broadcast on the appropriate cable channel. So it doesn't change that process a whole lot. It makes it easier because the video comes in a format that's already set up properly, so they literally just have to be uploaded. Currently, I believe staff is taking that video file, doing some processing with it, manipulation of it, and then are able to, upload it to the server and such.
So it will improve that?
Yes.
Make it easier, okay.
How much time do people save?
Oh, hours. It'll take. So the upload time, I uploaded a meeting for the town earlier, and it was an hour-long meeting. It took me 10 minutes to upload it, as opposed to having to take the video file, encode it off of DVD, change the format, then you have to scrunch the format down, compress it to fit on a system that broadcasts on the internet and stuff. So it's a cumbersome process right now. It would save hours per week just in that process alone. So.
Will the meetings be in real time on channel 16, or is that after the meeting?
Both. You can do
Both.
live. You can actually, as you're in the meeting right now, broadcast it on channel 16. As well as, we have Chantel in here now also. And Chantel has a paid channel. You can broadcast it live on that as well at the same time.
Now, right now, that meeting is with other meetings, so you're not.
Mike.
That meeting is not, it may be able to be broadcasted real for Channel 16 right now and actually show it as we do it, but it becomes part of a cycle of meetings.
Yes.
So you're not going to see, that's what I was getting at the other day. There's a cycle of meetings to where you're not going to see the most current meeting all the time. It'll become part of after the first meeting.
Yeah, so right now the agreement is the town does certain days with their meetings and the county does certain days with their meetings. We can adjust that time and accordingly to give people time to upload the meeting before their next broadcast time is. There's a number, or we can just say watch the meeting live, and if you want to watch a playback, you can visit the website for it, either one. The website stuff is completely seamless. So, there's no necessary take the video file, encode it, save it to the website. That's all completely done for you. That whole process is taken care of by Swagit, and that's part of the services that they offer.
You mentioned one other perk to the system, which our town council really liked. I think both town and county are trying to illustrate to the community all the positive things that are taking place within our governments. And so the Swagit system allows you to take a vignette of the clip of the meeting that was about a pertinent issue, and you can instantly post it on social media and disseminate it. Whereas now, you've got to go in, you've got to edit it, you've got to splice it, you've got to process it, you've got to encode it, then and so the time for getting out information from the meeting, audiovisual information from the meeting is significantly less time and valuable, I believe.
Does it cost more to do it this way through Swagit?
I'm not sure I
The
understand.
vignettes.
Well, vignettes, no, that's included with the cost, yeah.
Okay.
The vignettes and the posting to social media, that's all included with the cost. That's part of the structure of the system. It's built into the system.
That may not be the question that I was trying to ask. I'm wondering, is it costing us, the citizens, more money to do it with Swagat than it would be to do it the way that we are now? Yes. Are we saving money?
No, you're not saving money. You're paying for a service. Okay. So this is a service that you're not currently paying for. Or you're paying for it here, but it's not as expensive, if you will, because you have Dwayne that you pay to come in and do your meetings, and then you have staff that uploads those meetings to the appropriate places. So, it'll save you time with staff and other things, but the cost will be more because of the service that's involved with the indexing.
Well, I don't know that we've done a labor comparison and
Yeah,
cost. I mean, it's possible that we're saving money.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
You did?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
saving, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it was very significant, the amount of time that when you take in the idea of doing minutes and website stuff and video, I mean, it's a huge amount of time. It's very time consuming. It's one thing for me to do it because that's my profession. It's another thing for staff to do it that has no experience in that. It's very cumbersome and very, very detailed oriented information and very, very difficult things to do sometimes. And one little thing that goes wrong can throw the whole thing off. So, it would help you in the long run, and I think it would save you a significant amount of time. So if you do kind of a cost analysis, I think you'll be very pleased with that.
Todd, is there a help desk? Should you run it? Should there be an encounter that we couldn't upload it to the various sites that we wanted to upload to?
Yeah,
is there a help
absolutely.
desk for our people, or?
And that's one of the things that, as I've gone around to other locations and discussed with them, how's the tech support? Do we get what we need? Do people respond properly? And everything I've heard from the other people that are using this just love the tech support, says it's been working really well, and whenever they have an issue, they get exactly what they need very quickly. Again, though, the website and that information is all transparent. It just happens automatically. You don't even, it's just.
So we don't need, Dwayne isn't gonna have, his workload is not gonna be additional as a result of Swagat. He's not gonna have any additional responsibilities. It's all gonna be, and you're not gonna be managing the county stuff for us, right?
No,
Okay.
yeah, Dwayne, the one thing Dwayne does now that he won't have to do is he takes the meeting and he gives it on a DVD or some file format to Emily so she can encode it to someone here, I don't know who, but the point is that whole process will just go away.
Okay.
So,
And that's time, which
that's
which equates to money.
significant amount of time.
But it seems like, if I understand, I think you talked about it, the equipment themselves will be paid by the franchise agreement. So there's no out of pocket for the county or the town for that. The one thing is.
About $8,700 for the county.
Okay, but still, the main thing too is there may be savings as far as stay-up time, things like that. And like you said, you can do it in real time. And there again, and I think we need to make sure we do everything we can to get on channel 16 so that everybody does have internet.
Right.
And there again, I think the way it goes, I don't have Comcast now, but for instance, our meetings are shown for a 2-week period, I think, periodically, just like your roles are. And then if you want to go back and look at previous meetings of us, you all, whatever, you go to the website.
That's correct.
So it's all there. And again, like I said, not everybody has the internet. So at least people that don't have it, they can watch it as long as they have Comcast.
Right.
It seems like to me it's worthwhile to go.
Or Chantel for that matter.
Or Chantel.
They're kind of breaking into the market as well.
So I think it's a good way to go. And I appreciate the questions from our board. I think maybe your council asked that as well, as far as the one concern we've been experiencing difficulties with the microphones. But that's a separate issue, and we can look at that further too.
So I did check with Swagat and asked them if they do audio systems. Right. They do not. That's a kind of different animal, if you will. And I think there's some things we can do to improve the room a little bit. And audio has to be balanced properly. And all these years, it's kind of gotten out of balance, if you will. So I'm happy to get with Dwayne, and we'll try to see if there's some things we can do to balance it better. Obviously, getting closer to your microphones makes a big difference. But there's things we can do to improve it, I think. So.
Thank you, Todd.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Matt.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
I think Mr. Stanley has stepped out, but so year 2 and beyond, we are going to be spending $20,000 a year. And I noticed on here that the school board is included in their meeting. So will that 16,000 come from their budget?
So the school board, for both of us, is 20, the difference between the 20 and the 16,140, which doesn't include, it's about $4,000. I have not gone and asked the school board to get in the middle of this discussion. We've already got a two-way discussion going for 4,000. I look at it as it's coming out of our pocket too, they'll make that request. But for 4,000, we basically can cover their meetings as well. When we split the equipment costs for this room, it was done between town and county, not between town council, town planning commission, town BZA, or county planning commission, school board. It's just county uses and town uses, and we split it equally.
Duly noted. I appreciate that. Okay, that's my only question.
Who will be our go-to person that's going to take care of what Todd's going to be doing for the town? Who's
Emily handles all the meeting agendas, the minutes, and she'll be the swiping person.
So currently, I'm the person who is responsible for taking the DVD from Dwayne and using an antiquated system to splice everything together and to reformat it and save it into the proper formatting and post it on YouTube and then post it on the website and give the DVD to Cindy. And then Cindy uses her specific computer that is very old to post it on the local access channel. And unfortunately, that very old computer decided to finally die on us a few weeks ago, so we haven't been able to post anything recently. So having this capability, I think, is incredibly, it would relieve the burden on me and Cindy specifically, and that's Ms. Koprenak, she's in the planning department. But yeah, so I currently do all of the video posting for the county, but I still will if you all decide to move ahead with this, so.
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody have anything else? Thank you so much. Next discussion is the front row golf request for proposals, the RFP response. Mr. Stanley and Mr. Lentz.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so I want to say this is probably number 6, but round 5, we had a proposal from the outfit out of Stafford County that came in, and they wanted, basically they proposed a flat fee of $100,000 to take over operations. They were going to do some improvements and stuff to the clubhouse, but they had a number in mind of what they were trying to do. And the board, rightly so, declined that proposal. Several months ago, we put out one final one. I believe it was due on May 29th, just to see, again, is there anyone out there that was interested? From time to time, we've talked to even some of the local golf courses about various interests. We did receive a proposal from Virginia Golf LLC, and then we'll let Mr. Lentz introduce their partners that are here tonight. The initial part of the proposal is the $1 a year lease, but there are some other items as part of the proposal that staff, and we were able on Monday to sit down with Mr. Nash and Mr. Nichols, or at least Mr. Nichols, and kind of go through as far as some of the other stipulations they were going to propose in the contract. And some of those things are requests for items that, some of the stuff just clarifying what is the county's responsibility, what's the county going to be doing after the fact. They were also asking for some help on equipment. They were also asking for help on utilities and other things. I think, and I'll speak for Mr. Lentz, we know going in that assuming we shut down June 30, there will be some cost to the county, and that will be borne by the Parks and Rec Department. And whether that's bush hogging, mowing along the trail, along the river that connects with Rockland Park, I imagine we'd still be, we can still have boat memberships and clean around the boat landing. The clubhouse, we could still lease that out. We still have some HVAC costs for that building, so that we have some utility costs, things like that. But we sat down, at least on a conference call on Monday, to try to go through some of these things with the idea is, if this was even going to be considered by the board, we have to get to the point that those other things could be covered by the Parks and Rec budget, because we have no golf budget as of July 1. That golf course budget is zeroed out. So with that, Dan, if you could introduce our guests and also our board members that are here and kind of walk through some of those items that were outlined in the proposal.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you, Doug, very much for the introduction. What we're going to do first, I'm going to introduce Mr. Ray Nash here and Mr. Lewis Nichols. They are submitting the proposal. Mr. Nichols will be coming forward and just giving a little background about what they'd like to do, some of the points, what they feel they can do on their behalf to improve the golf course and continue the operations. We do have Chris behind us. He's a member of our subcommittee. I think, Tony, you're also a member of the golf committee. But once they finish, I'm going to go ahead and give you copies of basically what we discussed. It's actually revamped from what you been able to, what you were given in the proposal significantly. So the cost figures are really, really lowered by comparison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have first, Lewis, why don't you come up and give a background, and I'll cover that information that I just gave you when he's finished.
Okay, thank you. All righty, well, thank you so much for having us tonight. This has been a labor of love for Ray and I. You might recognize us from the golf course because we work out there. So I was a member out there, and then I somebody in the clubhouse said, why don't you work here? And I said, absolutely. So it's got a very deep personal connection for me.
You might get interrupted for a minute. I know I'm by phone here. This is Jason Ham, the interim county attorney. I'm having real trouble hearing the presenter. I can hear everybody else just fine. I don't know if he can speak up or what.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Could you hear him?
Pardon?
Could you hear
Can you hear us now?
No.
That's the issue. Is that, okay, so we can just speak up, okay. How about that, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, that's...
Except that. Now we've broken the ice. So Ray and I both worked there. I sort of stumbled on the opportunity just as being a golfer out there, a member, and it was my place to kind of decompress at the end of the day. I went through a very tense time with my family, with some personal things going on, with health issues with my family members. So it was my place to decompress, to relax at the end of the day. I was going there every day at 5, unplugging, walking 9 holes, walking the hiking trails, getting my steps in. So it became very personal to me. And I think it's a very personal thing to many people in this county. It's not just a golf course. And that was really Mr. Carson's original vision for the golf course. It was to make it a recreational center for the whole county. And so it had hiking, and still does, fishing, boating, and just happens to have golf. The golf course is designed after the county courses in Ireland. Mr. Carson, a little background on him. He was an immigrant from Ireland. Now, I don't think he came over poor because he came over around his father's lime factory. But he grew the lime factory, created jobs for the county, made a number of improvements. He became friends with the Bird dynasty, if you will. Back in the 20s, he ran Harry Bird's campaign for governor, and Governor Bird's campaign. And he helped get him elected, so Governor Bird made him the head of a conservation board that was a non-paid position, but it would do things like, they developed Skyline Drive. I know, Mr. Fox, you grew up on Skyline Drive. They did a number of wonderful things for the state, balancing tourism with the economy. So they balanced, it's all about balance, right? Coach John Wood, balance. And he did a great job of balancing growing tourism, growing business, but also preserving the environment. So he sort of had a Teddy Roosevelt approach to that. Well, segue back to Hoover, He got it through, got the Skyline Drive through, and a number of those things done. He got the Roosevelt administration to work with them on getting the CCC to do the rest of Skyline Drive and other parts of all the walking trails and the Shenandoah National Forest. And then his son tragically died in a drowning accident, not a drowning accident, he died of pneumonia, swimming in the Shenandoah River. So his thought was, never should anybody have to have the only option to swim to be the Shenandoah River. So part of the recreational complex that he designed and got the CCC to build with his relationship with the Roosevelt administration became the recreational center of Front Royal. If you go down there, go past the car wash on the left, there's an historical marker, and it tells the whole story. Son died in 1925, 17 years old, student at Randolph-Macon. And he thought, what a better way to honor my son's legacy by giving this land to the county or to the city at that point, Front Royal, the town, and making it something that all people can enjoy, all economic brackets, accessible to all citizens. So that was the vision that he had, and that's the vision that we have in our organization. So I approached Ray because we worked out there. We heard this was tragically maybe going to be something that the county just can't fund anymore. And I said, hey, Ray, why don't we put a bid? And so that's how we got here to where we are today. So our vision is to create a public-private partnership. I have a Marriott background, a Disney background. I've got the hospitality side. Ray has the really important side, which is he's been superintendent out there for the last, I guess a year and a half or so.
Yeah,
Would you talk to that a little bit about being superintendent?
Yeah, I got a call. I was a superintendent for 25 years. I retired and I started my own business. I basically help out other superintendents when they have issues, and I got a call from Dan. This course needed some help, and I came on, and I've been helping ever since. And it's been a fun job. And when Lewis approached me and said, hey, they may be shutting this down, I thought, well, if we can figure out a way to do pretty much what we're doing and keep the course open, I think that's a great thing, because it's a little 9-hole course. And when I first started, when I was 15, there was a little 9-hole course just up the street from me, and it made a huge difference in my life. It's what I've been doing all my life, and I do enjoy being out there and watching a lot of junior golf being played, a lot of beginning golfers, entry-level golf. It's affordable, and I've worked at high-end country clubs. And this is a great place for people to learn the game, and it's a great resource for the county. And we're hoping we can keep it open and keep it available for the county.
And we understand there's a reality here, and I was able to go online and get your your top priorities, and obviously number 44 is on a scale of 1 to, I guess, level of support highest to level, so 44 is pretty high. Evaluate and review the expenses of the county. So clearly this thing has been bleeding money, and we need to stop the bleeding, right? So we decided maybe we can come up with a way of creating a public-private partnership, some things that aren't going to hurt the county very much, the infrastructure you have to have in place anyway, because if you need it, you have to have it. So that's where the Parks and Rec budget comes in. So it's things that won't hit your bottom line so much. It'll help us out a lot. Plus, we feel like we can do things to help assist the county, and things like managing the boat ramp. We're going to put a halfway house down there, so that we can sell bait, for people fishing on the banks. It's a big part of the Hispanic community here. You see them down there almost every day, every night, walking, fishing. We are going to monitor the boat ramps for you, create more of a safe environment. People aren't bringing their trailers back. They're leaving them down there. So somebody just down there keep an eye on things. Also, we can hand out flyers and material in the walking trails. We get a lot of questions about things in the clubhouse. So we want to be a resource for the county too.
I'm terribly sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the feedback that you're hearing is because you're not close enough to the mic, and so our AV gentleman is having to crank up,
Okay, so.
the podium microphone.
So yeah, but he can't hear if I don't get close enough to that. So is that going to be okay here?
That's
you
fine,
think? Okay,
as long
great.
as you talk close to the microphone.
We'll work through it. Okay, got it. Okay, good now? All right, sorry about that.
It's okay.
All right, thank you. So that's kind of how we got here. Public-private partnership. Now, the problem you have is obviously the money, right? So, how do we save the county money? Well, I think Doug came up with some things that possibly we can do to help offset our costs without really being a big challenge. It sounds like it's losing about $160,000. I've heard different numbers, but we think that we can make it so that you're really putting out so much less than that. Doug, what is our estimation on what
I haven't seen Dan's revised numbers. Dan, you're looking at 25,000 for the parks budget? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
So essentially, it would save, obviously the difference. And so that being said, and then after the 3-year lease, obviously, if we can make this thing work the way we can, because we don't think it's really been managed. We haven't been doing yield management on the golf course. We haven't been doing a number of things. I've got a sales background in banquets. We haven't been really selling the banquet room properly. There are a number of ways we can create additional revenue streams. So not only will we save you money, at least for the first 3 years, but our goal is to start making money for the county by, obviously you want to create at least more favorable to the county after, the third year. So we think we can make that clubhouse produce. Ray and I, wouldn't be doing this if, clearly we didn't think we could make a success out of it. And we feel like we felt the county solved a problem because there's a lot of demand for, I think Dan is getting calls every day at Parks and Rec about people. It's not open on a Tuesday. I've been volunteering there on Tuesdays. One of our advisory board people has been volunteering there. So we're getting a lot of static when it's not open. And then if we can keep it open, keep the trails going, keep the boating going, we feel like we can create a win for everybody, and also keep that vibrant community resource alive. It's a Virginia Historic Landmark, I think we talked about that. There's also a plaque on the clubhouse wall about the Virginia Historic Landmark. There's a marker for Mr. Carson's son, Will Carson, when he died at 17 in the front. It's an historical site, so we would hate to see it go. And I just want you to visualize the happy citizens. I see them out there every night. They're walking, they're fishing, they're golfing, yeah. But it's so much more than the golf course. I think we need to look at this more holistically. It's not just the golf course. Mr. Carson's vision is a total recreational center for the county. We have 7 jobs out there we're going to create, so it's additional tax base for the county. Again, we already have the infrastructure in place, so hopefully we can save you money and make money for the county down the road. And we'll keep things affordable, inviting. We want to create a really positive environment for people to go. Again, that's what Mr. Carson's original vision was, to make it a positive environment for people to go and rejuvenate. And I think there's so much demand for that now. People need to just unplug and relax and regroup, especially in today's environment. We have some key goals. That's on the proposal. I don't know if you had a chance to read the proposal or not, but we want to create a culture of excellence, to create a positive guest experience. We want to create efficiencies in golf course operations, increase the number of rounds played, cleanliness, cost savings, revenue maximization, and guest satisfaction. We want to maximize food and beverage revenues by partnering with a local chef, potentially. We're looking at doing things like that. Maximizing banquet revenues by creating and executing an aggressive sales and marketing campaign to increase usage of the banquet room. Serving the citizens of Warren County more fully by generating greater awareness of the boat ramp, streamlining ramp operations, and increasing boat ramp revenue. Breaking down the barriers to entry to the game of golf, promoting initiatives to make it more affordable and accessible to citizens of the county of Warren from every demographic. And what we've noticed here, and that's later on in our proposal, because we did a SWOT analysis, looked at the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and we talk about the golf these days has changed. We have a lot of families out there. We have a lot of young families out there. We have, there's a whole nother, as y'all know, in Front Royal, there's a whole nother group of young people coming in, starting things like, what is it, the Bluegill Frog, and these different restaurants and things, and those people are coming out there. So it's not just, the old guard, it's a whole new group of people, and it really is something I think that's been accessible, and we've seen a number of people out there that are just from all demographics really enjoying the golf course. As far as the citizens of Warren County, we want to strengthen our partnerships and establish, with the businesses in the county. We want to conduct aggressive community outreaches, to support nonprofits and volunteer groups. One of the ideas I had, I noticed that one of your things was the fire and rescue, goal number 41, or priority 41, training and fostering better working relationships, developing and training volunteer fire and rescue. You know, once we hit certain thresholds, we would like to look at doing a give back to fire and rescue to help you with that initiative. We want to be partners, and we're passionate about it. It means a lot to us. We're putting our own money into this, our own time. There are a lot of things Ray could be doing, especially right now, and we're just blessed to have him. We want to keep Mr. Carson's original vision alive, and create happy citizens in the county. And that's a brief nutshell. I didn't want to just read it. I just wanted to kind of talk from the heart here for a minute. So that's how we got here. That's the general goal. Save money now for the county, make money down the road. Let's keep it alive. We're trying to save a historical treasure, really, and make it work for everybody. So that's kind of where we are, how we got here, and I hope that we appreciate your consideration. We put a lot of work in this, and I know it's a lot to sit through, and I know it's been a challenge. So we hope we've helped solve your problem with the golf course once and for all, so we can move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions?
Question? I don't know about a question, but I know that a couple things. One is, in this past year, we had, and I guess we tried to determine if we could use that property for something other than golf, and we went to the courts and it kind of went by the wayside, but I think over the last 3 years or so, we probably, hard to tell how many members we've lost because we kept talking about it being closed. So nobody wants to join a golf club and pay an annual membership. It's going to be closed in 6 months. So I think there's potential there. Again, because we had to keep it as a golf course. And I think Mr. Lyon can probably attest to that. That golf course probably looks the best it's had in the last 20 years. So it's an asset. The other thing too is, and let me just make sure, are we talking about if this was to go forward, that it would come around 25,000 or so, which would come out of the Parks and Rec budget, which is the best offer we've got before. The other thing too is, over the last 3 or 4 years, we probably got about half a dozen RFPs, and none of them actually worked out. Again, the county did their best, but the county was not really in the expertise of managing and marketing that facility. And these gentlemen here, I think, can bring that to the table. Again, it's like, I think it's worthwhile. I like that for 25,000. I think it's worthwhile to at least give this a chance. It was probably the last ditch effort. It does have significant historical value, I think. And I don't know if they thought about it, but Ms. Cullors and Ms. Oates, they're on the tourism thing. I think this could be an integral part of tourism for the county to continue to bring people in to play this course. So those are my thoughts. Again, I don't like to spend money, but if you look at it from that standpoint, the Parks and Rec has tried to provide recreational facilities, programs for everybody between 6 and 96. And not only people, but also dogs. We have the dog park. So we're trying to do all those things out there. We have some, not all the programs make money. We try to break even, some subsidize the others. If you look at the pool, I think the pool loses $60,000, $70,000 a year, but that also provides something to our constituents. So we don't always make money, but we want to try to be as efficient as possible. So I would just ask the board to consider this, and I guess we'll put it on the June 16th meeting for final consideration, because we need to make a decision relatively quick because at this point we do nothing. The course closes down June 30th, but there's still going to be some hard costs there too. Mowing, electricity for the clubhouse. And again, that $25,000 can also be offset potentially by banquets, by meals tax, sales tax, and those things too. So I would support trying to at least give this a chance, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Well,
Go ahead.
I've just been sitting here, and I'm no mathematician, but I come up with 27,500 of the numbers you have on here, and then, and type here is small. I'm getting older, I guess, my eyes. But you have to figure in, you've got cost of snow removal, you have cost of road repair, trash removal, mowing, cost, there's something here about maintaining the riverbank, pump maintenance, and the maintained drainage pipe. So to say $25,000 is kind of unrealistic when you have to figure in, even though county employees, I've seen where if Parks and Recs does something, they charge whatever, schools for mowing or whatever. So there is more cost here than $25,000. And what could that possibly be? I mean, a pump goes out, it says we're not going to replace it, but you can work on a pump and put out a lot more money than buying it, really. So those are things that stand out in my mind looking at this sheet.
I'm just going to say, what Doug had mentioned earlier is that a lot of the things that in here that we actually do anyway, like we have done a lot of the work, like along the bank that we've done that since, for Parks and Rec, we've mowed along Country Club Road where that wall is. We've done that. We've done along the trails. We've done that work.
But there's still a cost associated.
Right, there is a cost associated, but we would do it anyway. I mean, we've been doing it, so that specific cost is we've already absorbed. We've been doing it along anyway. We just wouldn't go away. The trail is an essential part of our Parks and Rec system. A lot of people use that, so we'd have to, continue to maintain that. Like we were saying about the clubhouse, we'd still have to maintain that if we do close down. Have an opportunity to, rent the facility for groups. We're still getting calls, not necessarily daily, but for the future, potentially use it for meetings, for wedding receptions, parties, retirement parties, these types of things. So, that's just another aspect to look at. A lot of things, there is a cost to it, but again, those are things that we have been doing on a regular basis for years and years.
If I understand it, the $25,000 we're talking about is above and beyond what you already have to do.
Right.
And like I said, we've got the trail out there.
Right.
Even there's not a golf course out there, that trail will still be maintained, I think. It's a great trail. It goes all the way from the boat landing up through Rockland Park. The things as far as maintaining the banks. I don't know if we no longer have the golf course, do we continue having the boat landing? Because my understanding is it's on the main stem. That's probably the deepest water we have on the Shenandoah River, and it's a matter of letting people have access to it. Is everybody going to go out there and do it? No, but there'll be a few people, and there again, you can recoup some of those fees as well. So I think what we're looking at is roughly $25,000 above and beyond what you're going to have to do, even if we don't do anything. That's what I understand. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
So I'm confused by the document. So estimated annual cost in this first row, I see $83,400, and it has total Warren County recommended. What does that mean? What is that number?
Okay, for the first column, the second column is the figures that Virginia LLC came up with, and then we met to discuss this as a group on Thursday before we spoke with them on Monday, and we went down the list of things we would agree to do with them and what we wouldn't agree to do with them, and then we basically used the bigger columns in the last column whether we're going to do it or not going to do it. So that 83,000 is what they proposed, and the initial discussion, like I said, we kept going before we talked with them. We actually discussed it, what we can and cannot do.
So the outlay officially would be $25,000 from Parks and Rec over the next 2 years, then $5,000 for through the end of the lease agreement, and a one-time $2,500 clubhouse fee. So $27,500 this year.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing too is, I'm not sure I'm as well. This year, I know there's been going through different alliterations and such, but this year is basically the final figures that you worked out this afternoon, which obviously I think this board, myself included, need to look at it again. In 2 weeks will give us that opportunity. But there's another cost in there too, and I'm not sure exactly what that is. And that's the golf cart rentals. And I'm not sure when the third or fourth year, it may be on there.
It's actually
this color
just in
said
the lower left,
it's
there's
so
one year
small
left.
that you can't read it, but no, but we have to buy that out, which would be a cost right there, even if we don't do anything.
Right.
And how much is that?
1,600 and,
That's it?
What?
A month.
yeah.
16 times 12 is 18, 19.6. I did that in my head too, by the way, I didn't just got there. So there's another 20 grand you have to put out regardless if you shut it down. And is that going to be the fourth year or the fifth
That'll be
year?
the last year.
That'd be the last year. So, but anyway, I think it's something for the board to consider. Obviously not make a decision tonight. And any other questions, I think we put that forward to Mr. Lentz or Mr. Stanley and get better verification and go from there.
So to the gentlemen who want to run this, so you're investing $100,000 in additional of your own money
Yeah, we have our own skin in the game. Yeah, so.
into this.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you're already employees, so you're not going to be taking,
Well, I'm volunteering
Okay.
right now because I just didn't think it'd be appropriate to be an employee unless I'd be proposing like this. That being said, yeah, I mean, so yeah.
Step
so
up
we,
to the podium, please.
I'm sorry?
Can you come up, use the mic?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
that's all right.
Let's get up here. All right, I'm sorry.
We're never in the right place.
Yeah, okay. You might want to just repeat the question just so we got it on.
So I just, what my question was is that you guys are putting $100,000 of your own money
Yes.
in terms of a line of credit and whatever your
Yes.
additional. And so what I'm looking at your pro forma,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be making a
It's
whole lot of
pretty
money.
aggressive,
Is this-
and it's pretty
yeah.
aggressive, I mean, in terms of what we're gonna have to generate to even make what you see on that pro forma is basically double what that thing's done over the years. So it's I mean, it is, but we think we can do it. I mean, it's probably a little aggressive, but we think we can at least break even, you know, and still, you know, we'll be able to take a small draw of some type, depending on what it makes. It's worth it to us. I mean, it's just a passion for us and a labor of love. Like I said, you know, of course we want to be prudent with our family's resources as well. So, as well as the county. So, yeah, you know, we've thought that through. I mean, we think it can do that because honestly, it hasn't really been marketed ever properly. There's a lot of government. There's a lot of new business in the county. There's a lot of military demand in the county and government demand in the county that wasn't here before. I mean, this is what I've done all my life for 30 years in Marriott. I mean, just solicited business. I think we can make that banquet room just produce. And so that'll be a big generator right there. Like you said, I think Tony made a really good point about, you know, I didn't think about the tax, what we could get for the county out of the tax was from the banquet room. That's a great point. You know, you've got 7 jobs there. That's tax revenue for the county. I mean, I think that 25 grand could really offset itself by, if we can generate, to your point, Dolores, all that revenue. You know, again, I think it's aggressive. You know, I think we're probably going to break even, you know, at the bottom of that.
If you're lucky.
If we're lucky. Because we have to really produce. But, you know, they haven't been managing tea times. They haven't been able to afford, you know, because it's been sort of just, you know, they've done the best they can with it. I think Dan's done a remarkable job with it. And, but, you know, they haven't been able to really put the resources after it that should be put after it. So in terms of yield management of the golf course, and we're letting walkers go out in the middle of the day. You know, we should be rocking that place with people in a golf cart, you know, during the day and do tee times, you know, 12 minutes apart if possible. And, you know, make people, you know, go out in pairs of 2, not in individual carts, and really get the revenue out of that place that can be generated. There's a lot of pent-up demand for golf right now.
I think that was the only thing allowed.
I know.
I mean, we have no choice.
That's part of it. But it's really created like a reawakening of the game, because as we know, golf's sort of waned, you know.
Well, it certainly helped the golf industry because you could only either go play golf or walk on a trail, and then they closed the trails. So,
This has been amazing. We've been running out of carts on the weekend. So, you know, you like all that money lost, yeah. We've had a number of them break down in Maryland. They couldn't get over from Maryland to fix them. So we've actually, you know, displaced business because of that. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I think it can produce if we just run it right. I mean, I'm going to be there every day. I mean, I'm going to be there in the morning. I'm going to get up at, you know, 4 a.m. and be there, opening up at 7. I mean, my whole family's helping with it. My wife's keeping the books. I've got 3 boys that are going to be helping. It's going to be a family affair for us, as well as, you know, for Ray, to some extent, you know, they live a little bit further out, but yeah, so, and Ray's going to be there all the time. He's already there all the time. He's been working straight out for, gosh, would you get up at 3:30 this morning? And
As soon as I can see him working.
and he came back here for this meeting tonight. He had another thing down in Ashburn, and came back for this meeting, this opportunity in front of you, which we really appreciate. So yeah, I mean, it's aggressive. You know, do I think we can make what's on the pro forma? Maybe, maybe not. Do I think we can break even? Yes, I do. Because we haven't been running it right. You know, and we have 30 years in hospitality with, you know, Marriott and Disney. It's not, you know, I understand yield management, I understand how to control cost, I understand, you know, how to do a balance sheet, I understand. I mean, I've been in these meetings all day. It's just a different scale. It's the same thing, just on a different scale. And it's fun. I mean, I've always wanted to do something like this. And I mean, it's weird how just things lined up, you know. We talk about how all the time we feel like Mr. Carson speaking to us because everything's lining up right, you know, for this. I mean, if Ray wasn't going to come on board with me, it was going to be a non-starter for me because he has the expertise on the one side and I have the other side. And, you know, he's just awesome to work with. And, you know, we're just thrilled that we've gotten it this far. We hope, you know, you can look at these numbers a little bit more and see it as a long-term thing where we can actually generate revenue for this county. And plus, you know, you're still getting a great resource out of it because people want to walk down there. You should go down there sometime. I see people picnicking down there. They get a little takeout lunch and they sit on the bench on hole number 5 or hole number 5, and they just have a little picnic lunch or picnic dinner out there. You know, you see like I said, like all these families out there fishing. It's so much more than the golf. The golf just happens to be there, and I think that's the sore spot because that's what's been bleeding. But if we can revenue, and we're going to maximize other revenue channels too. We have a number of ideas that probably you can see in the proposal, probably too numerous to get into here. But yeah, we've been doing this a long time, and we think, you know, this could be a win-win for everybody.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You've given, in your proposal, you've given yourself a 90-day out.
Well, this is my friend Jim Downey from St. John's. He happens to be an old family friend, and he's an attorney, and he is our legal counsel. Yes, because we need to be able to walk away if we can't lose our shirts over this. I mean, you're looking at walking away from it right now. So yes.
Well, we've been working with it for a long time.
Yeah.
Well before me.
Yeah.
But we don't have that out.
Well, but
there has to. I would think that
yes,
there
sir.
has to be a mutual understanding between our partner
yes,
and the county.
Yes, sir. Well, and I think that we would try. We don't want to get out of it. It was just if we're leaking money like a sieve, you know, clearly we can't take our families down the tubes. You know, forgive the language on that, but you know, we need to be prudent too, and so we just need to build in some kind of protection that, you know, look. But however, you know, if anything, I think you're going to at least, it's better than what we have now. No matter what we do, it's more than what what we have as a county now. You know, if you pull the trigger on this with us, it's an improvement because the other option is just closing it completely. You know, so if you close it completely, nobody wins. Nobody has anything. And it's so much more than the golf for us. We're going to manage the boat ramp for you. I mean, there's sometimes people get testy down there. I mean, we're going to hand out hiking trail maps. People don't understand how expansive those trails are. And make people understand or help people understand what a great resource it is. Again, it's just executing on Mr. Carson. Mr. Carson already did the heavy lifting for us. Executing on his vision, that's what we're going to do.
Mr. Chair, I have a question if I could ask that.
Yes, sir.
So Lewis, from time to time, some of the different proposals people have looked at that boat landing is potentially more. I've been down Smith Mountain Lake once or twice, and I've seen places that either maybe they have 1 or 2 pontoon boats you can rent, or jet skis, or kayaks, or paddle boats. And part of that is the investment up front, or trying to work out a lease deal to get those. But I think there's some advantage. It is, as Mr. Carter mentioned, the only deep water public access.
It is the deepest, yeah.
And I've water skied that section of the river. When you talk about water skiing in Shenandoah, most people think ankle deep water, but there is some potential there, I think, to generate additional revenue. You'd have to staff it to be able to do it, but certainly during the summer, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think you could. There are people that want to get on the river that don't have the ability to do so right now.
Right.
And to go buy a boat or a jet ski and use it once or twice a summer doesn't make sense.
Right.
Maybe pay $50 an hour to rent it makes sense, right? So I just, in your thoughts, think about that, because I do think there's some advantage there. You could have a small floating dock and have a few amenities there and have the ability to lease that out. I mean, who knows, maybe you can even do that from up top, having a sign saying go up and get your key or whatever, but there's an asset there that is unutilized, and we just didn't have the ability and resources to be able to go and buy the equipment and everything. But.
Right, I think you guys did a great job. Matt, with what you had, you did a great job. You took the resources you had and you made the very best you could. Now, this is my hotel background, but my goal is also to maximize every square inch of that clubhouse. So, you shouldn't have empty space that's not doing anything. So, clearly we want to make I've been driving around there in golf carts for the last 3 or 4 or 5 weeks just looking for ideas, and that's one that I kind of thought of that. Didn't really get that far in the proposal with it, but that's a great idea. We're going to put in some vending machines strategically in certain places. That's another revenue stream. So certainly it'd be within code, maybe not an eyesore, but we have certain places that we can put those that would not be bad, but those would be revenue generators. Ray, you want to speak to some of the other ideas that we had coming up? Since we're going down that path. But we had, and they're obviously, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves for a little bit, but I think this is a great conversation if you're willing to have it. We want to put in, I want to sell merchandise in the clubhouse. I want to sell some refurbished golf equipment. I had a gentleman come in the other day and say, my wife gave me $800 to spend, it's burning a hole in my pocket. And can you help me get a nice set of golf clubs? So I said, let me start searching for you, and we should be able to make a couple $100 at least profit on that, find the right set for them. So things like that just haven't been really thought about or done. The banquet revenue alone, we're charging way too little for that banquet room. We're not charging enough of a service charge. People are tipping haphazardly. That's money for the county. We're not charging, the taxes, and it's, to your point, Mr. Carter, that's money for the county. What are some of the other?
Well, we don't have a driving range where we plan on putting some nets up and we're getting have people with some golf balls and one more. We've already built a small tee down on the lower part of the course, so we have to get a pro in there and have him do some lessons.
Can you move to the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. Some junior clinics to get some younger golfers out there. I think that would be helpful.
So really the things that are in the proposal, if you get a chance to look at that detail on page 7 when you get there, but when you get down the road, you have a chance to review it. But implementation of T-time and yield management, that's going to double the number of rounds right there. Because if we do yield management, we're going to get a CRM system, customer relationship management system, so that why shouldn't we get their email? Restaurants do that. Why shouldn't we be contacting people for specials? And then we're going to actually monitor the cards and the safety of the cards. We developed a ticketing system. Thank you for getting them back in, getting them back safely and in good shape. We're going to be doing advertising and marketing campaigns. We're already partnering with the river and do some things with WINC. My son used to be the news director of the river. We already have a partnership with Randy out there. Some other people have already spearheaded for us. Increasing rates a little bit. Not a lot, just in the proposal what we're looking to do. And again, because that would defeat the purpose of keeping it affordable and accessible to all the county residents. Driving range nets. I looked at it the other day. I think we can get. We were thinking about putting them in front, but I'm thinking if we put them in a safe spot on the side, we can get 6, 7, 8, 9 decks in there. depending on how we implement that. Golf instruction, revamping the food and beverage operations. Now, that means partnering with a local chef and outsourcing it more. I mean, we'll look at that, whatever makes the most financial sense for the course. Aggressive sales and marketing efforts that just haven't ever been done before. I mean, it's just, again, this is my 30-year background in hospitality. Growing the number of memberships, that's probably about a $28,000 hit right off the bat, because there's a lot of pent-up demand for memberships. People keep coming in, they want to buy the boat memberships, they want to buy the golf course memberships. We can't sell them yet. So we have 40 members that really want to come back. Like you said, if people knew that was going to actually stay at golf course, they would pull the trigger and sign up. So that's about $28,000 on the balance sheet right there. We think we can do about on $1,400 days on the weekends, probably about $1,400 to $2,500 days on the weekends. On the weekdays, probably about $7,000 to $1,000 on the weekdays if we manage it right. Again, that might be a little aggressive, but I think we have a shot at making those kind of numbers. Efficiencies in the boat ramp management. Right now it's leaking money because people have been making copies of keys going to Ace Hardware and not, we finally came up with a system of combination lock to change that every day. But actually having somebody down there to monitor it and making sure people pull their trailers back, that's a safety resource for the county as well. So it's, that's where the public-private partnership comes in, handing out the maps, being a resource for the county. Courteous and polite golf store starter management. Again, they're not doing rounds as they should be. They're not doing them 15 minutes apart, 12 minutes apart, 8 minutes apart, whatever the demand creates. They're not separating them properly. So right now it's just haphazard, willy-nilly, go out as you want, and there's no method to the madness. They're just, people are getting frustrated. So if we manage this, I was going to probably move the desk out on the pretty days just so I can be the starter plus the cash register guy. And also going to move the cash register toward the end so I can watch hole one. So kind of thought this through and how we can make sure that people are going off at the right times. I can't afford a starter right now, but I can kind of function, or we can kind of function wherever I have on staff. I'm going to have 3 people in the clubhouse and we can do that. Ranger yield management of the golf course. Somebody just to kind of move people along, and make sure that speed of play. And that makes everybody happy. There are people, you don't spend 10 minutes looking for your ball when you have seven foursomes behind you. So things like that we can, in a polite way, manage. I've also thought about how we can flow the golf carts so we can wash them, get them out. But we're not even doing that methodically now. We don't have the staff for it, but wash them, get them around the front, change up that a little bit so we move them to the front where the porte cochere is, bring them out under there. We clean them on the side on the grass where there's a hose already, and people getting a nice cleaning protocol when they get their golf carts. And it's sort of like the broken window theory. Once people start repairing their divots and repairing their ball marks and getting a clean golf cart, they're going to see other people, keeping it clean too. And we're going to create that dynamic. Merchandising the golf equipment, putting some, we can put clothes racks in there. Rental clubs, we don't have any rentals yet. So the left-handed set, the ladies set, and maybe 2 men's sets for the rentals. Christian College, we get all these kids over there. They're wonderful kids. I hosted the president of Christendom for their staff retreat back in January, so we're getting a relationship going with them. They have a chef out there who's been doing some banquets with us. We might be looking to do something with him. Town Place Suites by Marriott. I know a little bit about Marriott. So Keisha, the GM there, and I've become pretty good friends, so we're going to do some partnership efforts. So, I don't want to belabor your time here, but I do want to give you a sense of how we've thought this through, and we haven't hit on we probably haven't recorded some of them, but there are a number of other things that I think we can do to create revenue streams that just haven't been done before, just because we haven't staffed up for it. So, I'm not saying we can make that money. It'd be nice if we do, but I think, Ray wouldn't be doing this if he didn't think we could do it. I mean, he's like, I know you can do that in the clubhouse. I know, because he's seen this. He's done golf for 30 years. That's what you've done. So I tell you, the fact that he wanted to do this, I really got this to a certain point where you approach Ray with it, because I'm like, I knew I was lost if he didn't want to do it with me. And there've been so many other hoops to get through, and you're the biggest hoop, obviously. You know, when he wanted to do it, I'm like, yeah, I think you can do that in a clubhouse. So we think we can do it. I don't think you have a lot to lose by pulling the trigger on it, and I hope we made a good case for it. Yeah. So thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else out in the audience who'd like to speak a minute?
Yeah, I'd just like to speak for just a minute. You know, you guys have been looking at this budget for a while, and, you know, it's cost you a lot of money, and these guys got it down to $25,000. I mean, I don't know what you guys want from a purveyor to take over this course, but this sure looks like rock bottom to me. I mean, he's definitely got the gift of gab. Okay, so I mean, so he can work with customers and stuff like that. You got Ray, who's extremely talented, and if he's willing to take this on, it just seems like the county should be able to give him that respect and let him do it. And if I can come forward and hand you this, there was a lot of talk in a lot of the other meetings that you know, there's a lot of other golf courses that can be played, but you know, a lot of the other golf courses cost a lot more money for golfers to play, and it's a substantial amount. If I can hand this out to you guys and just kind of.
Please do.
Emily needs one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But it shows you the differences. And this is even with the increase. Right now, they're only charging $9 for 9 holes of golf. It's increasing it to $15 for this new fee. So that's going to increase our revenue dramatically right off the bat. So I think that's going to help out a lot also too. And Mr. Mabee said that, you know, the county has no out, but the county is actually getting out of it at the end of June. So you do have an out, basically. So for them to have their requisition to say, you know, we would like to have a little bit of an out ourselves, I don't think that's out of line, me personally. But I just think they're saving you guys a lot of money. I just don't know where the breaking point is. You know, you've had so many, what is it, $160,000, is that right, Doug? Is that what we're looking at now?
I couldn't, Dan.
I think it's somewhere pretty close.
Somewhere pretty close to that. Now we're down to 25. I mean, what does it take, you know, to give somebody a chance? You know? And these guys, they actually work out there. They see the people. They think it has potential. And they're the ones that are there. So I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents, you know, and let you guys know what I thought about that. And I would just hate to see this golf course go down after 82 years. It would be a crying shame, it really would. I think it has a lot of potential, and Ray has made this course look better than it's looked in 25 years. I get all kinds of compliments, people tell me about it, I've played it myself. It's absolutely amazing. He manages well, he does everything well, and it looks like Lewis has a lot of experience also too. I've been telling Tony since I started on this committee, we need a manager and we need a good greenskeeper. And you have that now. And now you're not even paying Ray anymore. Ray's taking it on his own. So he's been the biggest cost you guys had on your budget also too. I think somebody gave me a figure, but it's like $288,000 over the course that he's been there for the things that he's needed in his salary. And you know, that's pretty much going to go away for you guys. You know, so I just want to throw my 2 cents in, like I said. And, you know, I just think that these guys can do it. I think they have a good opportunity to do it. And I think you should give them the opportunity to do it. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other additional questions, concerns, problems? Yes, sir.
Well, I certainly have to applaud these gentlemen for their passion for trying to keep this golf course alive. I mean, you almost have me willing to run out and buy a new set of golf clubs and get right down there and start whacking some balls. But you remember, we went through this issue pretty thoroughly several months ago. You can go back and look at the videos. There were several speakers who came up and talked about this, and they weren't supporting it. You poured a lot of money in this golf course for many, many years, and the county doesn't need to be in competition with the private industry for golf courses. There are other golf courses that people can play at. you had one of the owners of one of those golf courses come up and explain to you in professional terms why this one is not getting a lot of business. And yeah, these gentlemen are passionate about it. And I will have a copy of that spreadsheet that he handed out about the numbers. But they even admitted that this was a risky deal here. If they were lucky, they were going to break even. And I recognize it's only $25,000. But it's $25,000 here for this and $25,000 here for that, and it all adds up. I don't want $25 of my tax money going towards this. The county has got a wide range of recreational opportunities that they're supporting now. We don't need this one. And I have to say, your comment, Mr. Carter, about not wanting to spend money, well, you've been on the board the last 6 years that didn't have any problem raising my real estate taxes every year. So I thought that comment was pretty rich.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Can I say something to that too?
Yes, sir.
The people that he's speaking about is 4 people, and now including himself is 5 people, and another person, which would be Ginger from the other golf course. There's 40,000 residents here. So if you guys are going to listen to just 4 people or 5, you know, I think you should put it out in a vote. I don't know if you can do that or not, but ask other people what they think, not just what 4 people think.
Thank you. Any additional questions, concerns? Next item for discussion is the coronavirus aid, the relief and the economic security of the CARES Act funding. Mr. Farrell?
I hate to interrupt you again, but was there any consensus? Because there was no consensus of the board after the Swaggart proposal, and then there was no consensus of the board after the Front Row Golf Club.
Put it on the June 16th meeting.
For authorization to advertise for public hearing.
Do we have to have a public hearing?
The previous golf proposal had a public hearing.
Okay. We have time to advertise for that?
It needs a week notice, so we would need to call a special public hearing before the end of June.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And same thing for this golf course on the 16th.
Swaggart, Mr. Chairman, would not require a public hearing. That would be just approval. The golf course would require a public hearing. Now, if you wanted to say tonight, consensus to have a public hearing, say on the 23rd, we could at least, or whatever date you pick, we could get that moved. We've got to advertise 7 days to be able to make it work. So even going to the 16th makes it tight to try to get in this month. Not impossible. If there was a consensus, the board to at least schedule a public hearing, no commitments, we could at least get the advertisement in and get that started. If not, we wait till the 16th and look at trying to maybe try to get in the 30th, which is right there at the end of the month. But
I would suggest we do it the 23rd. It's more than likely we're probably going to have a work session that night anyway. So we have a special meeting that gives us 2 weeks to put it out there for public hearing. If that's acceptable to the board, it also gives us another 2 weeks to do further research, due diligence, whatever.
So you would like to have a meeting on the 23rd, is that what
I'm
you're
saying we have a special public hearing for that item only on the 23rd, because more than likely we'll probably have a work session that night too. So we're probably going to be here anyway. So we make advertise for a public hearing on the 23rd. And again, like I said, that would also give people an opportunity to ask further questions and look into it, maybe hear from the public as far as what their thoughts are.
Any other people
If
have
you
any
want to be
problems
able
with
to take
that?
action, you're going to want to make it a special meeting on the 23rd, which you can do.
What?
Wait.
If you want to actually take action on this rather than just have a public hearing, you're going to want to have a special meeting, not just a work session.
Say that one more time, Mr. Ham, I'm sorry.
If you want to be able to take action on the 23rd, you should have a special meeting, which is not complicated to call. Doug knows how to do that.
That's what we were discussing, sir. I know you've got some difficulty hearing us, but that was my suggestion, is we have a special meeting, have a public hearing on the 23rd. If it's a consensus of this board, we go ahead and advertise for that. And then if we have a work session afterwards, we have a work session, since we'll probably be here as well. Is that acceptable?
Yes, Mr. Carter, I could hear you, and maybe it's hypotechnical, but I heard a public hearing and a work session, and it needs to be a public hearing and a meeting.
No, that's what we discussed.
Good.
If that's acceptable, that's okay.
It's acceptable to us, I believe, everybody.
There's consensus, Emily.
Thank you. And that's gonna be a 7 PM meeting?
Yes, that's 7 PM, and that would be a public hearing, so the public hearing couldn't take place till 7:30, is that correct?
It's the only item we can schedule at 7.
Okay, just making sure.
Good point.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell, can we talk about the coronavirus aid and the relief and the economic security or the CARES Act funding? It's always yours, Mr. Farrell.
Right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to hit the highlights for you. You have the proposed agenda item in your timeline in front of you. On June the 5th, 2020, county and town officials met a second time to determine the equitable distribution of CARES Act funds between the county and town. In attendance from the county were Walt May, Dolores Oates, Doug Stanley, and myself. In attendance from the town were Eugene T. Walt, Bill Seelock, Matt Tederick, Doug Napier, and B.J. Wilson. This group concluded that the distribution of funds be based solely on population and agreed to using $25,000 or 62.5% as the county population and $15,000 or 37.5% for the town population for a total Warren County population of $40,000 or 100%. Additionally, this group recommended that the county withhold $100,000 to fund the May 22nd, 2020 Chamber of Commerce request for $60,000 and to fund an internal CARES Act audit of $40,000. The proposed motion next week would be to allocate the $3.5 million as follows. $60,000 be withheld by the county for the purpose of funding the May 22nd, 2020 Chamber of Commerce request. $40,000 withheld by the county to fund an internal CARES Act fund audit. And the remaining balance of $3.4 million be allocated between the county and town based on population as follows. $2,127,596 or 62.5% to the county, and $1,276,558 or 37.5% to the town, and that the town's portion of CARES Act funding be distributed and appropriated to the town, contingent upon the town using such funds for expenses that are reimbursable under the CARES Act, upon the town providing documentation to the county sufficient to prove that such expenses are reimbursable, and that the town comply with other applicable laws and county requirements concerning the expenditures of funds, including but not limited to requirements that will specify the timeline for the submission of such documentation by the town as determined by myself in consultation with the county attorney. If you will flip your page to the proposed timeline, please. So pending your approval of this agenda item next week, we recommend that on the following day, June 17th, we'll disseminate the approved agenda item in the associated timeline that you see before you. I will disseminate this to the county administrator and the Front Royal town manager. We'll have about a month later, on July 24th, we would like proposals back. We expect those proposals to be back from the town before that, but on the county side, that gives us at least a work session and a board meeting to discuss things on our side. And at the same time, no later than July 24th, we go ahead and retain an auditor because several other localities will probably be trying to do the same thing with this money. On August 7th, we want to have the proposal review complete, and we'll have those recommendations back to both the county and the town for action. By September 11th, if the documentation is all complete, then we would have the county and town to distribute the project funds. October 16th, All substantiating documentation would be due in accordance with Section 601D of the Social Security Act. November 6th, we would review the documentation before coming back to the board. And then on November 20th, assuming that all of the paperwork is complete and legally sufficient, then we would recommend that we would transfer funds to the county and the town as appropriate. On December 4th, we would provide the auditor all of our substantiating documents. For your awareness, the CARES Act period ends on December 30th, and we would ask the auditor to be complete by January 22nd. That gives us roughly 1 working week if the auditor does find a hiccup, and we did have to give money back, that we could still complete that on time by January 30th of 2021. Any questions?
And this is on our agenda on the 16th?
No, I think, I appreciate when you came up with the first alliteration of splitting the funds between government and whatever, you gotta start somewhere, and that's the thing. And I think if I understand it correctly, even if there was so much allocated for government stuff, for the county, for the town, even though you gave it, we would allocate that money to the town, they could still spend it as far as they see fit. So I think this makes a little bit more sense based on that, and cut it 36 and a half, 37 and a half, and 63 and 62 and a half, and then do it that way. My main concern was we don't have to keep going back and forth on how you're going to do it. The main thing is to get this formula in place, agreeable with the town, and get this money to the people that need it. So I'm okay with this. I look forward to that. The main thing, though, that I did feel, and you already covered it, was that we want to make sure, and I think the town's agreeable now too, that we want to make sure that that money is spent under the parameters of the CARES Act. Because if we give them so much and they misspend it, we're responsible. We could go back to them and reimburse us, but I think doing this as far as the checks and balance, we want them to put that money out there where it's needed, and we have the, I don't want to get into control, final say, or whatever, but I know, and I hope that we are able to work well with the town, or to get these monies out there to the people that need it, because there's a lot of people out there hurting, and I think this will be beneficial for our community to help these businesses and the individuals. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can add something. So once we get this part done, one of the next things we need to do is get our side together and talk about what we would like to see included in CARES Act funding. I know I've talked to Ms. Cullors and Ms. Oates, who are very interested in broadband, as I am as well. And I'm in almost daily conversations with Comcast about trying to they're working on some estimates for me about expansion of broadband, particularly in South River District, where we have some larger areas, the Bentonville Road and Buck Mountain Road areas. I've also, Fauquier, I believe this week is going to be talking about it, because some of the direction we've gotten has been questionable as to whether or not it would qualify. But I think at the very least, you have to spend it in this window of time. You can't wait to spend it next year. So that's the conversation, say, with Comcast. At the same time, by August, if we're going to apply for a VATI grant, I've asked Comcast and CenturyLink, give us a proposal. If you want us to, we can apply for a VATI grant funding, which is completely separate than CARES Act, to expand broadband to certain sections of the county. We need to know, we're going to have those cost estimates worked up to be able to do that. So I'm trying to attack that from two different fronts. But, Mr. Chairman, I know we talked about possibly you have an EDA loan committee about looking at trying to come up with an outline of a grants program, maybe modeled after the towns. The way we split the money up, you've got a piece going now into the towns. So we got to look outside town limits, say for businesses and anything else you want to do. But we need to put the ideas on the table, put them into a spreadsheet, come up with a budget, and figure out, okay, this is what we want to spend. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but it doesn't have to necessarily be the whole board. If Mr. Chairman, you and one of the other board members, maybe we with that EDA committee and Rick can start putting some ideas on paper. But if the town's doing a business program, I'm sure we're going to look at a business program outside of town limits. We need to, if they're going to come up with the ideas, we need to get them, work on the parameters, what kind of costs associated with that, and we need to look at some of these other options for CARES Act funding. I'm watching, I'm talking to all our neighbors, what do y'all spend your CARES Act money on? What kind of programs are y'all looking at? And we're trying to get an answer on broadband, but really and truthfully, we need to not only have an answer, but have a direction and give somebody marching orders within that 60 days if you're going to spend the money in the next 6 months.
Well, our parameters also need to be spot on. I mean, the same as the town, so we're not overstepping our bounds, they're not
Absolutely.
overstepping their bounds. So doesn't matter who does it, what does matters is everybody's treated equally.
Well, and I asked BJ today for a sample of what their proposal for businesses happens to be, because what we don't want to create is the town and a county, and one is giving one percentage and another one is giving another percentage, and you've got a competition. Well, so we can't do that. To me, it needs to be streamlined and uniform in the way we distribute the funds.
And it could be, if the town is using the chamber, you could say, all right, chamber's doing this in town with the town money and this in the county with the county money, and you can split that cleanly. But we just got to figure out what we want to do in the next few weeks and start moving in some direction. But I hear you loud and clear on looking at things like broadband and other things we may want to do. And it's a good opportunity if they'll let us do it. But we got to figure out, what the potential, what the possibilities are, and then ultimately get the board to vote on what we want to do with the money.
If we could get broadband into the county, then we could basically eliminate snow days forever.
I'll say this, new direction came out from the governor today on schools, and my quick read is, I don't think every kid's going to go to school every day. I think you're still going to have, in order to maintain spacing, you're going to have some stacking.
Yeah.
My kid goes today, your kid goes tomorrow, and alternate. It's ever important for the broadband aspect, and we still, I think Melody told me, only 4% of their kids don't have broadband right now.
So we got to figure out where that is so we can get the broadband.
So today I said, I need an address point. I need a spreadsheet, address point for every kid. They'll have first grade through 12. They'll have kindergartners yet. And I'll map it in the next week so we can see where those match up with where, because I have maps of, say where we don't have Comcast or CenturyLink broadband service, to see where are these pockets, where's this 4%, so we can take a look at that and then turn around and look at a Comcast to say, all right, how much, how quickly could you do it? And then we can really take a look at those numbers.
Yeah, one of the things, or questions I have that you brought that up is, we can commit to Comcast or whoever. We can commit to them. Is it the commitment that counts, or is it the dollars in their pocket that counts?
We have to spend the money.
Okay, so when we basically do an RFP or an RFQ, whatever we do, we would then say, go do it, here's our check.
Yes.
That's the easiest way for us to do it.
Well, my understanding was we have to spend the money first and then ask for reimbursement.
We're gonna up, the town will front the money, we will front the money.
Okay.
And then when the proposals come back and we're happy with the substantiating documentation, then we transfer the cash back into our accounts and into the town's account.
Okay.
The question on broadband too, which was, we put an RFP out and they say, okay, $500,000, we can put it all out here. Is it a matter of giving them that money at that time, or is it a matter of them actually putting in the infrastructure?
I'm not a contract expert, so I'm going to need
That's all I'm throwing out there, and I would suggest too, and maybe for Ms. Shirachi's, always asking, Shirachi? Chachi?
No.
Okay. Anyway, I would like to say, and Rory talked about, this will be on the agenda for the 16th. Yeah. And I would think at that time, Mr. Stanley may have some other stuff, and for this board to consider to appoint that committee or start looking at it in more detail, whether we work with the EDA or whatever, and start getting this thing going. And there again, that would just be a matter of appointing the committee and setting up the structure, and then you guys go at it and then get this thing rolling. And if that's okay, then I think that takes care of it.
Yes, and I would be interested in seeing where those shortfalls in the broadband is, because I do understand Browntown area is very much out there without any of those services, but I'm not sure how far up it would go in Harmony Hollow, for example, Lakefront, or all those areas, so I don't want anybody to think.
I've got a better handle on Comcast, like CenturyLink, and they don't have to share data with us, and they've been, years ago, 10 years ago, they were pretty good about sitting down. Like I found out after the fact, they ran fiber to Browntown this year. That's fantastic, because previously, they were running copper pair and trying to run all these people off broadband. Whoever's on early in the kind of the pipe, pulling taking up the bandwidth, the people at the end of the pipe, there's not much bandwidth left. So at least running the fiber line has made a difference. What if you ran the fiber from Bentonville over to Browntown and made that loop connection? So I'm trying to have that. CenturyLink is less responsive, but they're light years more responsive than Verizon, who's up in Ms. Oates' district. Verizon won't return a phone call. So Comcast, I can have those conversations with, and for them, it's about, put pen to paper and give me a call. Anybody will tell you the Comcast service is faster than the CenturyLink service, and that's the ultimate, I think, target. But, again, it's, you've got Chantel has moved into the town. I've talked to Chantel. Chantel doesn't want to go to South River because the density is not there. It's so expensive. There's been a lot of money burying lines across town right now, and they hope to be, significant payback because of the density. When you're at 10 homes per mile, and you were spending $100,000 a mile, that takes a long time to get that benefit back.
Well, and I understand that, but my point was, I don't want anybody that hears this thinking my only interest is in the Bentonville, Browntown area, because my area encompasses a whole lot more than that, and I've been up to
Panhandle doesn't have service.
Yeah, and we share that, because it splits there, but I've been up at Lakefront Royal where you don't have a signal either. I don't know what their internet service is.
I think they have Comcast for internet. I'll get you
and
that
that's what
tomorrow.
I want to find out. And I assume, and I don't like to assume things, that because of the Forage Center and the customs and then ATF, that they probably have it up to that. But Hominy Hollow goes much further on past that, and I don't want to leave them out of this equation if that's where we head down the road. I know we can't do it all. We got to take small pieces, but
I think our life will be a little bit easier when we're able to plot the school kids against that map of where the coverage isn't, and say, okay, where's the density? Where can we pick the most kids up and with the coverage? So I think that'll help us. So I'm hopeful in a couple of weeks we'll have all that data merged and be able to take a look at that.
Since Nikki's here, can we ask her a question? Do you have the staff to be able to accommodate the CARES Act? And because I hear, the chamber's going to do this, the chamber is, how long is it going to, how much do you need? How many people will it take? Have you even considered any of this?
Yes, absolutely. Fortunately, we're really flush with some good volunteers. And so we've actually already put a group of folks together who will be going over the applications on the town side. So we already have that put together, so those folks will be handling that. And it's a really streamlined process. And we do have folks who are willing to volunteer for phone answering, that sort of stuff. So we're in really good shape there. And I'm happy to share who is on the committee if you'd like to hear that too. I don't know if that's interesting, but Ray Bramble with AirServe, Herb Melrath, who is a community volunteer, you might know Herb, Mike Noble, who has Noble and Noble Accounting locally. And then of course there's someone from the finance department with the town, and Councilman Bill Seelock is serving on that group. But yeah, we're in good shape for that.
Okay.
Follow-up question, Nikki, if, no commitments, but if the county said, hey, we have some money we'd like to allocate for the chamber to do businesses in the county, could that be handled with
Oh.
the infrastructure that you have or putting in place?
Quite frankly, I mean, if we had the opportunity to do that, I would much prefer that because, of course, you know, our membership is Front Royal and Warren County. So for us being able to help the entire community, you know, versus just the town businesses, of course, we would like to do that. So if you guys were willing to give us the opportunity, we would be more than happy to do that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Welcome.
Next item is Front Royal Warren County Tourism. Taryn, is Taryn available or is someone else going to do that?
So I spoke with Ms. Logan earlier today, and she was unable to make it to the meeting, but she said that because Ms. Oates and Ms. Cullers were on the tourism call last week, they would be able to handle it pretty well, and what the overall committee is recommending.
Ladies?
So Ms. Cullers and I did participate on the Front Royal Warren County Tourism Task Force, if you will. That's what I'm going to call it. And in your packet, there's an outline, I think the presentation that Carrie Barnhart had done for us previously, and then we reviewed these options. And the structural options are in the back, based on what type of organization we would recommend. So we met and we discussed all those options, and our recommendation is to start with structural option 3B, which is fully contracted out with committee leadership. The reason for this is that there is a joint, actually 3A, excuse me, which is a step toward 3B. So 3A is a contracted out with a committee leadership, hold on just a second, here it is. Is fully contracted out and still allows the Joint Tourism Committee to stay intact. So here's the challenge, folks. What happens is if we create a board, the legalities of creating a board, which kind of models, and I know this may not be a great comparison, the EDA board, requires legalities. We would need to set up a board and comply with the Virginia Code for boards and find the people, appoint those, design it, and the sense of urgency to create this tourism committee right away or to create this structure does not accommodate the time frame that it's going to take to create a board. So our recommendation was to go with structural option 3A, fully contracted out with a contractor, allowing the Joint Tourism Committee the oversight role, the strategy, planning, budgeting, and oversight with the partner liaison. That role, what we would do is we would allocate or appropriate the tourism dollars to their budget, and then they would direct that with our approval. We would still be, Ms. Cullers and I are still going to be on that committee. We're going to be discussing that strategy, where these monies are going to be allocated, the way they're going to be prioritized. All of those things would include representation from both this board and both the council. So that is our recommendation, and we do need to vote on it. So if we have consensus to put it on the next meeting agenda, it would require a vote from what I understand.
And is the town, when are they voting on saying?
So the town is, yep, exactly. And the town, from my understanding, is in agreement that 3A is the recommended course because 3B would require the length of time to set up the legal entity of a board.
So all right, so let's say we set the board up in July, we have this new board that's going to handle tourism money for the town and county. Is one or the other, the town or the county, going to act as a fiscal agent to handle the books for?
That was my recommendation, that we
Somebody
set
needs
it up.
to manage the money.
Yeah.
That the money would go, say, to our treasurer, and the same way that they're for better, use of analogy, the way we're doing the EDA money now. It sits here, there's, the bills come in, we have an oversight committee that looks at those, approves them, and then it goes on for the checks to be written. So there's a layer of oversight.
Yeah, so I think until there's 3B, if we're at 3A,
Right, we're at 3A.
it'll still take appropriations by the board and or council. So that may be a question. Is the council going to appropriate and spend authorization of the spending of the money on the town budget and the board on the county side, and then wherever the committee directs those payments, Taryn can sign off for the county and the town person can sign off for the town. Because legally, you're not an entity, you can't have money, you don't have an audit and all those other pieces that go with it until you get to 3B. I think that's what.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So in essence, the county would still manage its tourism budget dollars through the board. You guys, you five, would have the control of those dollars and basically direct Taryn, who's handling the tourism stuff, where to spend it. The committee would say, we want to spend $10,000 on ads, we want to do $15,000 on promotion, we want to do the wayfinding signage. So y'all are still directing it, but ultimately the Board of Supervisors has to approve those expenditures, or the council would have to approve those. That's what I think that's what I'm hearing.
And I think it's going to be, I think we didn't iron out all those details because the people in attendance weren't sure of how that would operate. So those are some items that would still have to happen, but basically it would be a joint effort to direct the tourism initiatives so that it was a community and a collaborative project and not just one entity. So my understanding is, and this is some of the challenges that we learned, is that, for instance, the county created a video and the town created a video, and neither of them mentioned the other. And so we spent money doing those kinds of things that, had we joined the dollars together, could have been done to promote both of us. And so that's one of the items that was pointed out to me. And so, I think that we can figure out how to do the pieces and parts of the bureaucratic side, but that if we can just agree that we are willing to work with the town to do this as a joint effort, and I just want to say that I think it would go a long way in the community to demonstrate that we actually can work together on an initiative, and that I know that is the goal of both Ms. Cullors and myself, is that we can show and demonstrate that this can be done. And so we would like to start here with 3A, and then we'll work out the details. Mr. Stanley, maybe you can help us with that oversight. And then, but allow us to at least start on July 1 with tourism dollars directed to this committee's decision making.
I think it's good. I think that's the main thing when we were able to get the legislation to give us an extra 3% of lodging tax. And the main concern, not necessarily particulars how it would work, but the main thing was, first and foremost, not to duplicate efforts, which sounds good, like what you're talking in reference to the video. The other thing too that I always felt was that the county's tourism money was meant to supplement what the town was spending, not to replace it. And I guess the other thing too, there again, one detail which I'm sure you all talked about, and that's the visitor center and their employees. That's still coming to the town's portion.
It would be a joint portion, so it's not going to be town or county. It's going to be us, not us and them. So that was one of the things that we were adamant about, that it was an us endeavor. So should the visitor center be, and I see that visitors, if you notice, visitor services are under here, that it would come out of the joint effort, not one or the other budget.
When Carrie explained the way other areas do this, is because our concern as well is the employees that were already at this visitor center and what would happen to them. Would that be up to the contractor? Would we have any say in it? And the way Carrie explained it is, if it's done correctly, that you find out what your plan is and what your vision is, and then you see if your employees match that, and if they don't quite match it, do you feel like you can work with them to get them to the point to hopefully keep the people that were there? Or if they don't match that model, then, you move towards getting people that do. I think the way I feel about it is that we're hoping that those people match up, because it sounds like we had a good group of people there.
So ultimately, it sounds like the RFP will be put out, getting proposals. You'll get 3 or 4 proposals. You'll recommend one to the town and county to move forward
Right, and
with.
Carrie's working on those.
And then the checks would go simply from the county and the town to this vendor. And that's it for that part. And then you may spend money on other things the committee designates, but as far as the operation of the visitor center and that function, that's the majority where your money's gonna go, is to the vendor that y'all select.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's the way that we envision this. The contractor will be the primary, and how they manage it will still be guided by the Joint Tourism Committee. And this committee is comprised of what I would call stakeholders. These are people who have a stake in the success of this community. So this committee would be making the decisions that hopefully would benefit our whole county in the direction of tourism. It is our #1 industry. And, and for a while it's been done with one vision and another vision. And so I think that it would go a long way for us to have a common vision.
Have you selected a board, or are you going to go with your existing board, even as, I'm not going to say dysfunctional, but it was kind of broken apart?
So one of the things that Carrie told us was that each board member would have to decide whether or not they wanted to be on the board given their new responsibilities, because being a board versus being a committee is an entirely different legal responsibility. And so, it's the same way as having the EDA board. So if you use that as your comparison.
Isn't it,
Because it'll have
wouldn't it be considered an advisory board?
If it has fiduciary responsibility and it appropriates money, then it has a whole different level of responsibility than it currently does. Because this board is currently an advisory committee.
Well, that's the way that I see them, and I just wanted to know, to make sure that if we were talking about actually changing their roles and responsibilities.
Yes, their roles, yeah.
If you look under, it says oversight, strategy and planning, budgeting, oversight, and partner liaison. So right now, they're just advising, what they vision to make a marketing plan, or, where this extends it more, they have to figure out how they're to budget that marketing plan and come up with, between the town and the county, how much the contribution is going to be. Like I said, Carrie's working on the RFP, so then you have to find a contractor that's going to be able to supply what their vision is within the budget.
So in the past, Mr. Mabe, what's happened is this joint tourism committee has basically provided opinions to Taryn, who for the county, and then the community development person for the town, and they just provided opinions about where the money should be allocated. In this new role, they are going to be driving the vision, and with our assistance and our help, but they're going to be driving the vision and deciding on some of the best direction for us to take. And then we'll all collaborate, come back and report, and try to get everybody's input and buy-in to the direction that we decide.
And when do you intend to get this started? When are we spending money?
July 1.
Well, I mean, that's
Yeah, so we're on a short time frame.
Okay.
She was hoping to have an RFP ready to roll within a week or two.
Exactly.
I just don't see how you're gonna spend money July 1. Maybe
Well-
being facetious, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I guess it's be on the
facetious.
16th that we agreed with the structure. But then as far as put the RFPs out for the contractor, does this committee, and I guess maybe you'll have that, and that'll be more details, maybe it's there now, as far as who's going to be on it, and we don't have to get into it right now. But then we'll talk about it on the 16th and set that structure. Put the RFPs out for the contractor. Question is, does this committee hire the contractor, or does it come back to the town, the county for final approval of whoever they're going to contract with?
That's a good question, Mr. Carter.
I think under 3A, it's gonna have to come back to the board and.
Okay,
You know, for instance, once that committee, if the committee's gonna have the power and the money's gonna go to the committee,
And you're gonna have to have the financial aspect, you better have insurance to protect the board. There's so many other elements that,
Right.
like you said, the EDA, they're gonna have to get in place. That could take 6 months. So I think in the meantime, whether it's the town or county, somebody's gonna have to be, maybe we're our own fiscal agent for the dollars, and you sign a contract with an XYZ company, if it's a private company, and the county cuts a check, the town cuts a check, and the committee directs what they're working on, and they run the visitor center and handle everything. I think that can work in the short term until you get all the other pieces in place.
I think there's going to be some things that are going to be done visitor center. Those things are going to be ongoing. And like I said, the big ticket items as far as wavering signs, the videos, something like that, that can come down the road. It is going to, I appreciate your optimism that you'll get this done that quickly, but you know, we want to get it done, we want to get it done right. I think it's a good start.
Well, I truly believe that this is, that everybody on this committee has a passion to do this for this community, and so I think we're gonna make it happen as quickly as we can.
So it'll be on the 16th.
Yes,
Let's do it correctly.
we will.
Emily, can we have this on the 16th? Thank you.
And I think we're consensus on that.
Yeah.
Might I interject a few comments into this discussion?
Yes, sir, you may.
Well, I took the opportunity to spend a few minutes trying to watch that video of your all's meeting the other day. And I couldn't have been more confused. Now, of course, I didn't have the documents in front of me like you did. But in the little bit that I've thought about this, I'm afraid to say that I think the full contracting route is the least option that has an opportunity for success. The problem here is that the baby got thrown out with the bathwater. The town had a tourism group that was operating pretty well. You had a lot of people come out, the public came out and talked about their complaints to the town about trashing the employees and their interim manager demonstrating tremendous management skills by doing so without any plan to replace the progress that those people were currently making. So what we've been seeing is nobody in charge doing tourism promotion for the town and the county up until now. That's fantastic. The mayor.
I have a question. I don't mean to be upset or anything like that, but I don't understand what you meant by that. Were you being facetious about it?
I'm being sarcastic.
Okay, I apologize. I just want to know because I'm a simple guy.
I'll try not to be sarcastic.
Okay, thank you.
So that you can take the words literally. The mayor's been emphatic when this topic has come up, that this has been tried by one of your neighboring jurisdictions, I believe it was Shenandoah, and they had terrible results from it. And nobody seems to want to take a look at the facts. There seems to be this headlong rush into the direction that the interim town manager wanted right off the bat. Now, there's always some undercurrent of information that everybody doesn't have access to. Well, my understanding is that the whole reason why the community development person got trashed and this whole idea about creating a contracted tourism promotion solution was that a couple of businesses didn't get the response from the community development person And so they complained to somebody who was influential on the council, and the council went to the interim mayor and said, this is a problem, needs to be fixed, and thus, here's where we're at. So,
Commissioner, I think you're at the wrong meeting. We had nothing to do with that.
I know, well, it comes down
So
to...
you're complaining to people who have no knowledge or ability to even address what you're saying. Nothing. I have no knowledge
I
of this.
appreciate your comments, but we're at where we're at now, but trying to decide where we go from here.
Right.
Now, in that meeting, Supervisor Colors asked a simple question, trying to look at each of the options to say, let's take a look at a second and what things were to start with, and define what the problems were there that we're going to not have in the new solution. And it got glossed over. There was never any answer to that. It was just discounted out of hand. And with all the support that I saw at the council meeting from the public and people who are involved in tourism and businesses about how happy they were with how things were before the midnight firings occurred, that maybe somebody would have gone back and said, well, wait a minute, let's take a look at really what the real problems were. Because if you don't identify clearly what your problems are to start with, you can't guarantee you're not going to have the same problems with your final solution. You're going to end up in the same place you started. Now, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of details to be worked out about this. The devil is always in the details. It's the difference between success and failure. And when you're dealing with contractors, and I've dealt with contractors, I was in government for 30 years. I've dealt with some big contracts. And, contractors aren't there to be altruistic. They're there to make money. And they make money by providing the least amount of services in the short amount of time frame. So when you get a contract for an activity, you want it to be extremely focused and where you can measure the deliverables. Well, the results of tourism are going to be pretty hard to measure. There's a lot of factors that go into it as to what causes something to be a failure or a success. So the whole concept of using a contractor to manage the whole thing has got a problem. And you're also dealing with a contractor who doesn't live in this area. We had a community development group that lived locally. They knew our area, and that's why they were so effective. You contract this thing out, you're going to get employee XYZ from a contractor who's going to have to come in and gen up at our expense and is probably not going to live here. They're going to operate remotely. And the result that they're going to get is not going to even come up to knee level, to what we used to have. When you deal with contractors and you run a contract, that's it. Boom. It's set. You're going to get A for this amount of money. Well, where's your flexibility? It's like when you build a house. You say, I'd like these things in this house. And okay, I'll build that for $250,000. Well, now as you start building it, we have a few more ideas. I'm going to need to add this, I'm going to add this, let's change this. You got to go back and you got to change the contract. The administration of this kind of an activity is tremendous. It's a lot of effort. So it's not like you're just going to be able to. I really want to see what this contract, would be, to be specific, what the deliverables would be, other than just broad categories of, managed digital advertising, print promotion, media buys, that type of thing. Well, that's generic. So how do you measure whether, you're going to get 15 hours a month of radio coverage, but what is the radio spot? Somebody else is going to determine that because you're not in control anymore. You've purchased a generic product from these people. And it's not going to be anywhere near close to the hands-on, I'm working in the area that I live result that we got from the system that was in place before. So I'm sure my comments are just whizzing in the wind here. You know, this is the rolling ball, and it's headed down the railroad track, and it's gonna roll right over top of us. And we're not gonna get the same results as we had before. And we're just gonna bypass trying to identify what the real problems were with the original system, and we'll probably end up with those same problems in our new solution. So, good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Christian.
So that maybe you could do as far as when you get that contract and have certain performance measures
There are.
throughout that contract. So much to be done, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and the whole thing. It's not gonna be like a blank check.
No. No, and there are metrics, and,
Right.
and there's all sorts of things that are gonna be measured, and there are companies that specialize. They're called subject matter experts, and there are other organizations and cities that use these models, and I just have to say that Carrie Barnhart has researched and researched and researched these options, and we trust her research. She has pages and pages of things. And this particular one is being used by Bath County in a very successful way. And so it's not unheard of that other cities have used these models and have been successful with them.
With all due respect, though, Bath County is not anywhere near as comparable to Warren County. I think they have 7,000 people, and they don't have the amenities and the opportunities that we have to promote.
We got the next item, sir?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we've got 2020 goals, prospects, projects, and programs.
Yes, sir. So we've completed our process with board members. We took the goal statement from last year. We asked board members to provide comments on new or suggested goals. I do the same for department heads and constitutional officers, send that out. We get feedback. Board members go through and they score 1 through 10, 10 being the highest. Anything that typically gets a 25 score or higher ends up on the goals list as Emily's put together. Anything below 25 is left off. It doesn't mean the stuff that's under 25, like putting together the budget, is not important. It just means it's not making the goals list. If the board is okay, I will put this on the agenda next week for formal adoption. I use this with staff to help show what is important to the board and our work program for the year. We're a few months behind getting this completed, but there's tasks on here for different departments. So we'll go through and we'll identify for each department that's responsible. For example, number 20, reviewing and renewing the 3 ag forest districts. That'll be the planning department. So we'll sit down and work out with Taryn and her staff, work out a task list to get this completed in the time frame it needs to get it completed in. This helps us set our work program, so we appreciate this. Again, if you're comfortable, we'll put that on the agenda next week for approval, and that's our marching orders, and we'll get moving on with it, Mr. Chairman.
I'm comfortable with that. Do we have any concerns from our board?
And we get the next meeting, we'll have time to discuss further things, and we'll have more time to digest this as well, so.
Absolutely.
I'm okay with it.
I have some
Yeah, go ahead.
empty spots because I had questions on it, and then
So did I.
And if you want to revise your score, if you want to email me questions or whoever else we need to,
Yeah.
we can absolutely do that. And Emily can go back and just revise the scoring matrix. I would say if you can do that maybe by the end of Thursday, we can have that updated in the packet. Be glad to. For instance, number 40, complete revisions to county sign ordinance. So our sign ordinance, which is part of the zoning ordinance that deals with signs, there are some provisions of our sign ordinance that are not currently in compliance with state law that's changed as far as the freedom of speech. So we have to allow certain things to happen on a person's property for freedom of speech, which may be in current conflict. And I think they were reviewing other signage stuff, but I know Mr. Ham has made some recommendations and some boilerplate changes that he's done with some of the other jurisdictions that he's worked with, that we need to bring our sign ordinance in compliance with state law. So Taryn, that's actually going to the Planning Commission, I believe, for a public hearing this month. So some of the stuff is in different stages of getting completed, but yes, if you've would like to revise your number for something or would like to add a number, send it to us by the close of business on Thursday, and we'll try to make whatever adjustments are necessary. If you have questions for me, email me and I'll try to get you an answer.
Thank you. Emily, would you make sure that that's on the 16th?
Yes, and I also have both Ms. Oates' and Ms. Culler's original documents with all of your notes and comments and priorities, and if you wanted to come in and just fill those blanks in, you're more than welcome.
That's good, yeah, I'd like to ask some questions, because some of the ones we've left blank, we had no idea why they would be a priority or what the circumstances were. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the potential acquisition for property surrounding the Warren County closed landfill. Mr. Barry.
Mr. Chairman, board members, good evening, good late evening. Emily, I think, is going to put up a couple slides for me. The first slide that should be popping up is the letter. Each of you should have a letter in your packet from Mrs. Fuller on behalf of the Morrison family. And I don't know if you'd like me to read the letter aloud. Would you like me to do so, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. So it's in regards to several tax map parcels in the South River District, addressed to Mr. Stanley. On behalf of my siblings, Juanita Carroll, June Long, and William C. Morrison, and myself, I am writing concerning our property which joins Warren County Tax Map 43-29A, which contains the closed sanitary landfill and the current transfer station. As you know, our right-of-way to our property, south of the county property, is inside the fenced area where the closed landfill is located. A boundary line agreement was recorded in 2010, establishing the western boundary of the county property. Monitoring wells were drilled in the right-of-way, moved, and then more temporary wells were drilled and closed on our property. We are requesting that the county buy additional property as a buffer on the western and southern sides of their property. This would be a benefit to the county for the future for any need to drill more monitoring wells. We could also have the benefit of a new right-of-way. I have already contacted Cheryl Culler, South River Supervisor, so she is aware of our request. Sincerely, Linda and Fuller. So, I was asked just to come in and speak briefly about the request. If you think it would be beneficial, I could also give you a little background on the closed landfill itself. As far as the Warren County sanitary landfill, it is an unlined municipal solid waste landfill, maintained under permit number 184, issued by the Virginia Department of Health on April 29, 1975, and most recently amended by the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, on January 30th, 2004. The facility boundary encompasses approximately 85 acres. The waste footprint encompasses approximately 38 acres. The landfill was constructed along a ridge line that slopes radially downward to the north, west, and east. The primary method of landfilling was trench fill. The landfill closed in the early 90s. The best date I have is April 8, 1994, and is currently under a 30-year post-closure care period as required by the Virginia Solid Waste Management Regulations, otherwise known as VSWMR. Groundwater and landfill gas remediation is currently ongoing. So that's kind of a basic, and I can answer more questions if you would like more detail in regards to our groundwater and our gas as far as what we're doing on the landfill, if you'd like more detail. So how I looked at this, just in the opening, I'd like to say that my understanding is the Morrison family wanted this to be public and open in the work session. The Morrison family, Ms. Fuller, in my time with the county, and I think before me in dealing with Deputy County Administrator and County Administrator, has always been very helpful if we needed to access their property. We actually have wells, as mentioned in her letter, on their property currently. I get a lot of, I usually get a lot of feedback from the community whenever anything is discussed on the landfill, and I think we've had a couple of those meetings since the new board has been in place. Mr. Carter, Mr. Fox have been involved over the years. But I like to also, realize that those residents, have an interest. So, in looking at this letter, I looked at several things and in regards to what could happen now, what can happen in the future, and what we have to deal with regulatory and financially in the county. So what are the benefits if we were to acquire additional property? So I broke them down in basically just 3 benefits. Additional buffer or protection for future development. The family is looking at selling their property, and we discussed recently, about agricultural easement we did on Bentonville Road. In that area, the Smelster easement that happened, we discussed groundwater. We're pinned in. We don't have any more room there. We're at the road, so that easement basically says, hey, we won't put any more development on that portion of the property. Then we could have more groundwater contamination from new homes, new wells being drilled. We do have issues, with groundwater. We've discussed before with an online landfill, it's going to happen. It's the way that it's just, can we manage it? Can we keep it on our site? And when you're talking about migration with an online landfill, it's going to happen. You have to do your best to control it, but if you don't have any kind of buffer, it's going to create problems. And we see that in that corner near Bentonville Road. My concern is with solid waste management regulation. If we were to site a new landfill today, we would have requirements for where we would locate that landfill. It doesn't really work in reverse. We do have some zoning ordinances, but right now, if they would build a new home, they could back it up, say that's a side property boundary 35 feet. We already have wells on her property, so say we get close to that landfill and they drill a new well. Well, if we were doing a landfill, any well strained body of water by regulation would have to be a minimum of 500 feet. But doing it in reverse with a closed landfill, that's not in place. It's not there. So anything we do is going to be protective of any future development, people-wise. Now, I want to show a couple pictures so you can see what I'm talking about, because I know it's a whole lot of information. Let's see, top is the pointer. This is the Bentonville Road section. I think the last time I spoke to you, we talked about monitoring well 9, and we were looking at these 2 homes. And this is, where we've had issues. Like I said, we're pinned in on our boundary. The Morrison property in discussion, and I'll show you a couple maps in a minute, but we have landfill all of this area. This little dot here is a family graveyard that's been there for many years. And this is a pond that I think was built during the establishment of the landfill. But this is a good word photo. Boundary right beyond this fence line, that's Morrison property as well. This is our transfer station. But all of this area, we go right up to the fence line, come down to the wood line. We've actually done some work in here. There's trash in that, right at that wood line. It comes on down. The boundary she mentioned, the right-of-way, it comes right on through here, which is actually in the fenced area of this closed landfill, which is actually Morrison property. And we have some wells that sit on the property she's mentioned. Well, we're looking, what can additional buffer do for us as a county? We talked about just protection for future development. If we have additional buffer, it would allow us to move the permanent facility boundary out to the new property line via a minor permanent amendment. And that effort would involve additional work, submittal of a revised site plan, a near vicinity map, groundwater monitoring plan, and revised landfill gas monitoring and remediation plan. So it's not just going to be, hey, we have a little more room, no matter what we would decide you're done. We would have to do some new things. But approval of the new boundary would also allow, this is where I talk about some regulatory compliance helps and additional cost savings. Movement of the groundwater monitoring wells, MW3 farther west, via an alternate point of compliance, or APC, a variance request. So, and this is a well specifically on Morrison property now, we could use the existing Sentinel well in ES5, which I know I got a whole lot of little lingo here that don't make sense, but it will in a lot of time, I'll say. Anyway, this well is currently on their property. We could do that. We could use this as a monitoring tab without the need for drilling a new well. And doing this would eliminate corrective action monitoring on that side of the landfill. And I can back up to the map. Right in here, we have heavy metals, cobalt, which is drifting there. So if we had a little more area, you expand your buffer. Our goal is to keep any kind of, water migration, gas on our own property. Let's handle it, don't let it leave the site. So the more boundary we have, the easier it is to make the EQ happy and to actually meet our regulations and protect the people that are already living adjacent to the property that could be in the future. So we went through that. Also, if we could move 4 gas boundary probes, 3 on the west and 1 on the south side, farther away from the landfill, this could potentially eliminate the need to operate and maintain the gas extraction system on 2 sides of the landfill. So because we are so tight, the waste goes all the way down to the property boundary. We don't have any more boundary kind of get into place, and we don't really have a methane problem, but you can get in like what they call a methane halo, and you have to have something operating all the time because your probes are so close together. So if we could move those probes out and have a little more space, it would also help us, and it could help us money-wise. We could actually in the future eliminate that gas extraction system, or potentially eliminate it pretty quickly. And that's something if we were to evaluate a final line, we would probably, or I would like to request to explore a little bit from the Morrison family before we set the final boundary, and get with our engineers, especially on those gas probes. This is a map just to show you some of the complexity of our monitoring systems, and I think you have a copy in your package. It's a little easy to read. It's kind of hard to blow up at so much detail. This kind of shows groundwater migration. The well beyond the property line here, this is the one I was discussing that we could use later on.
We need Morrison property line on top of that.
So, okay, so we're, and I can show, I'll go with this. We'll go up here. This might be easier to look at this. What I looked at, and back in 2018, that's when we completed the buffer or the easement on the other side of the road, on Bentonville Road. We actually had several conversations with Ms. Fuller and the Morrison family. I get a lot of questions whenever we do any kind of activity on the landfill. Ultimately, it would be great if we have some barrier protection, additional land that we can actually help us. It can help us with our overall care, closure care. I don't know, I couldn't give you a date when we'll ever be done there. But if we have more property, it's a lot easier to let the land heal itself. When you don't have that land, you got to continue to create systems, whether it be water systems or gas systems, to collect and keep it from expanding. I'm not going to say that if we get 200 feet that all problems are solved, but I got basically an estimate from an environmental engineer. And we wouldn't have to go, I'm not trying to say this is the end all, but it would be great particularly to have additional room where we know we have cobalt concerns or gas concerns. The board could look at it. I think 200 feet would be great, but if, like I said, if we could explore a little bit and we needed to come out a little further for a gas probe, or if, we wanted to close, back here, if we wanted to go outside of the waste limits. You could have those discussions. But any ground that we can get will help us, I think, financially in the long term.
I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Microphone.
Okay.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. Frankly, I don't understand everything, but I've got a good handle on what you're talking about. How long is this going to give us before you start believing that you're going to have a potential for other problem? At some point in time in the future, this boundary is not going to be enough. And how long down the road are you going to have to think about buying some more land?
Well, honestly, sir, the problems that we've discussed in the past on Bentonville Road, that is our biggest concern. As you can see, and it's a little dark, I mean, my 200 foot doesn't encompass a property that is right here.
No, that's another landowner.
That's another landowner. And I mean, that would be something that I think that we should pursue. Because right now, you know, groundwater is a concern there. And when we took our visit, you saw where we had just put some new wells. We're sampling the wells. We've sampled more wells. You guys, decided to.
How much is enough to make sure that our generation or whatever period of time that you need to be considerate of, how much is enough?
Well, we use scientific modeling over here. I mean, I can get with an engineer. I believe this would be enough to make it through my lifetime for sure. Probably my children as well. As far as generational, I mean, it's hard to predict all the topography. That's what I count on experts for. We just talked about those things. If we can get more property, that's wonderful. The more you have, the better it is, especially adjacent to that waste. And as we know, that water and the movement, a lot of that groundwater, but it's hard to predict. One of our head engineers is a geologist, and there's a lot of variance in that rock down there in the formations. I mean, so a lot of the mapping, a lot of, of our, or sometimes it's like Swiss cheese, but there's usually method to the madness. And hey, we're trying past events, and that doesn't work. We see a methane halo because we don't have enough property to space those probes out. So if we can acquire a little bit, maybe we can space them out. If you would like me to get something modeled and say, how long will this 200 foot area last? Will it go 50 years, 100 years? If you would like that, I can get with an engineer, but I do believe it'll last a long time.
Mike, if I can interject. Yeah. So when we did our landfill tour, we were talking about, so we're 25 years post-closure right now, 94, 26, almost. So there's a certain point in which you should kind of ramp up and you should get past your greatest chance of contamination or migration and of contaminants off-site onto adjacent properties, and the risk should start coming down. We had some of that information we could share back with them. We're getting closer to that point. I know when we first, Mike and I and Bob first talked about this, some of our biggest concerns with this are, what if you have houses that start being built right up against the property line in the future, and now, rather than dealing with property that's maybe worth in the 5,000 to 7,000 acre range, every well you're drilling costs you how much, Mike, to put a well in and monitor it here?
It just depends.
Ballpark.
25 grand depends on.
So what you maybe could have bought 5 acres for, now you're drilling five wells at 25,000 a pop. So it's easier to deal with those types of issues now than after something pops. So if a house starts, 3 or 4 houses that get built right next door to you, and they've got wells, and they start pulling water, and all of a sudden this issue starts migrating west. It's the same thing we ran across with the Smelser property, and why we bought an easement across the front of the property, because we know groundwater is moving in that direction from the landfill. We also know that for whatever reason, they dug the trenches and buried the trash right up against the property line on the west side there with the Morrisons. So you have that same potential, or at least maybe towards the northeast or northwest.
Yes.
So, it was easier with the Smelsers to buy an easement and keep additional houses, which by right they could have cut along the highway. and not have additional wells pulling that groundwater across. That's a cost savings long-term. And I think we're looking at potentially the Morrison property, the same type of issue. One, as Mike said, give you additional buffer from the existing buried trash and your existing wells, and maybe get out of some of the regulatory requirements, but also keep additional houses and wells and drain fields and things from being encroaching up on the edge of the landfill and potentially causing problems. You know, you'd like to avoid having to buy houses that might get built here in the future. So it's, we certainly appreciate Ms. Fuller reaching out and allowing us to have this discussion now versus.
Well, you know, if Mrs. Fuller, is that right? Yeah, Mrs. Fuller, if she sells it to a developer, they're gonna put houses right up to the edge wherever we stay. And if we're not diligent in what we're trying to do, then we're gonna have a problem 5 years down the road.
Oh, yeah.
Irregardless of what we're trying to do.
Right.
You're right.
And some history on this. This was family farm that had been generational. And I guess for the correct term, it was taken under eminent domain. It was not.
That easement you're talking about?
Oh, that whole land.
That whole land.
80-some acres. That did not go easily. There was quite a bit of a lawsuit over that. So, you know, I think she's being very gracious with the county under those circumstances to say, you know, that she has a concern that, you know, to even consider us and our side of things when she could just go out and sell this to a developer and not deal with us at all. So I appreciate her doing this to want to work with us on a buffer.
As do I.
How close is the contamination down to your western boundary there, right up to that buffer that you're proposing to?
Well, I have a well off on her property because that's how close we are. You know, we're on the boundary. The cobalt and the metals is.
It's real close. Then.
Yeah. So I'm in corrective action for cobalt over there now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think she's agreeable to you going on, you know, like I said, she's been very gracious about wanting to work for the best interest of her and the county on this to get it the best for both of us.
Well, I'm just trying to give you what I see as far as benefits to the county now and in the future. I'll let you know that the family has been great as far as me working with them. I think anything that we can do, I mean, even if you said, hey, you just get what you need and chop it down, you know, if we can get those areas that we need, but, you know, right on the boundary, and, you know, you have a problem already on that boundary. If you build homes there, I do worry that it'll be a very immediate problem, and we might not get the opportunity to, you know, say, hey, can we, you know, come in there and, you know, check your water, or they might just expect us as it migrates in there.
Well, and then you take the potential of illness or whatever, and we're caught up in the liability of that as well. So
Yeah. The most protective thing is to have no groundwater source near those waste trenches.
And I also have a packet for each of you that Mrs. Fuller gave me in case everybody, that's one package.
Oh, this is one package.
Everybody has it down.
Any other questions? I mean, we're going to be required to take care of the problems that occur no matter what we do. You know, when the landfill was established in 1975, there were no Virginia Waste Management regulations. They didn't really go into effect in Virginia until 1993. So we're going to have to take care of, you know, whatever may occur, whether we build a home or not. We'll be responsible as migration happens. As Doug mentioned, the land will naturally start to heal itself, but when you have a well, I mentioned before, that is human, you know, consumption, it changes, the regulatory requirements change. It poses a threat to, or a health risk, and then your responsibilities change. And, it might be something that's minor, but if we have drinking water source nearby, then, our responsibilities are going to change really quickly.
Right.
Or in the buying home.
May I have a copy of your presentation? I mean,
Yes, sir.
I don't happen to have one in my
Okay.
packet.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'll give you everything.
Okay, thank you.
Is this the same thing that we're going to discuss in closed session? And if I heard correctly from Mr. Berry, and I think questions by Mr. May was as far as future concerns, and you said you maybe get with an engineer. I mean, I think it's definitely worth it.
If you want a projection, I got with the engineer on that 200 foot in 2018, just based on what we had happening at that time. I spoke with him again this week. Didn't feel like really anything had changed. As I mentioned, a couple of those probes, it'd be nice to be able to do a little probing.
We're going to discuss, I guess, purchase price, stuff like that.
That's why it's enclosed.
So I was just thinking maybe it'd be better off, since we've got a lot of information tonight. Is there any real time frame? I mean, I'm in favor, I think this board is, pursuing it to mitigate future concerns. But I'm just thinking that, with the information that Ms. Collins gave us, maybe we put this on the closed session.
Yeah, I think Ms. Fuller would be okay for us punting to the next meeting. That's fine.
I think I agree with Mr. Carter. It's somewhat premature to start discussing those things when we don't have all the data
Yeah.
at this point.
I don't think she's
Please
in
mark-
a rush that be done tonight.
Mark your calendar, June 9th, that Ms. Oates agreed with Mr. Carter.
Doesn't happen often.
So, but no, I mean, I think it's worthwhile pursuing for sure, and there's a lot of information that's being brought.
Yeah.
I appreciate Mr. Berry's bringing that to us.
I'll break down.
Now, should we leave this on our section 2 of the closed session? I think we should take that off there.
I think we should.
I think we
I
should
agree.
too.
No more questions? Yeah, you're slipping down. Someone want to read us into the motion to go ahead and close meeting?
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir.
And I guess the only thing we have to discuss in closed session now is the EDA, which was added on. May I make a suggestion to the extent that, and it'd be twofold. One would be, I know we had a good list of candidates that put in last time, which is fine, but I think that we should go ahead and advertise it for another month, because when we did that last time, we wound up getting somebody that wasn't in the original packet or original applicants. I think time will tell, but I think it's going to turn out to be a good fit. So I would suggest we make it, 30 days and see if we get anybody else. We shouldn't have to interview the ones we've already interviewed because we've heard from them, but then if we go ahead and then put it out there, like I said, for 30 days or so, and then we can talk about it again and see if we get anybody. If we don't get anybody, we use the ones we had there. The other thought, and there again, don't mean to be springing on you, and I looked at the bylaws that were updated as far as the EDA bylaws, and it says that the Board of Supervisors appoint 7 members. And it used to be 5 and 2, whatever. It says we have that authority or our responsibility to do that. And I think somewhere in there too, it says that 2 of those members should be town residents, which I think we meet that qualification. But I was just throwing out consideration, and we don't have to make up our minds tonight, but if we were to give the town the opportunity for them to put forward somebody they'd like to be seen on there, our board would have to approve it. But there again, because I know some of the things that Ms. Oates has read in the paper, as all of us have, there's some concerns. They feel like the EDA is only doing stuff for the county, which I don't believe that's necessarily true. And then if they want some more input, and I would be willing to offer that olive branch or whatever. They can have a recommendation for the next pick. We have the final say, but not that they would have to pony up any money for operating. If they want 2 picks, then they may have to. And I know they're talking about doing their own EDA,
they know more about what they're looking at than we do. But I don't know. It just seems like the last 15 years or whatever, Mr. Fox can attest to this, they keep coming to the county, double taxation, the county ought to pay all these things, and now it seems like they're doing a 180, and they're going to create their own department, and the town taxpayers are going to pay for that. And I don't know the exact figures, but I almost guarantee that for them to create their own EDA, it's going to be $150,000 to $200,000 once they hire an executive director, support staff, those things. The other thing that may be difficult too, which we've seen in the past too, they're going to have to try to find 7 people to be on their board that live in town. And right now, it's getting to be more and more difficult to find volunteers who are willing to give their time and efforts and energy to be on these boards. So something that you all can think about. Again, I apologize for just throwing it out there. But you know, so.
Can we make a request as a, kind of like a dual sword thing? Let's put it off for a month and advertise it?
Yes.
And then at that time, just during that time period, we give the county or the town, give them the opportunity to place one person on, and they can do their own advertisement and bring it on.
Yes.
I'm happy to do that. That way we don't have to go into closed session. We're not talking about anything.
And that was actually my ulterior motive, so we can go home.
And write it on the calendar, I agree with you.
Yeah, let me just say, this is the second thing we agree on tonight.
But maybe that's on the road.
Snow in June.
Yeah.
Maybe. Actually, my grandfather said he saw us crossing every month except July. But maybe if we can direct Mr. Stanley or Mr. May wants to talk to the mayor and then throw that out there and see what their thoughts are.
I'll be happy to talk with the mayor, and then Emily, if you'll get this advertised for another 30 days, I'd appreciate it. And then if I have any trouble talking with the mayor, I'll let Mr. Stanley talk with the town manager. So we have a motion for adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. We are adjourned.